Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the May 17th, 2016 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. Conservation Commission is appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and the members are charged with duties and responsibilities of enforcing the Wetlands Protection Act under the state law and the regulations thereto, as well as the Milton Town bylaw governing the wetlands. As a matter of formality, we always introduce ourselves, and we have our recorder going so that if anyone wishes to speak, you're welcome to do so. We ask that you introduce yourself for purposes of the record. By way of introduction?
Judith Darrell Kemp.
And my name is John Kiernan.
Michael Blute.
Arthur Doyle.
Ingrid Beatty.
First on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability, Keolis Commuter Service.
John, I was saying, I just mentioned before we start, I wanted to talk about the bald eagles that people are interested in, that we have at the estuary on the Neponset. And I talked to Norman Smith at the Trailside Museum last week, and he said 2 eagles have been found dead, that he's gone. I know it sounds horrible, but he said no. It's actually a good sign. What's happening is things are so good, they're competing.
A good sign.
They're competing for resources, and that the males fight in order to get the best situation. So he thinks there are 2 nests up there, and that there are at least 1 set who are nesting. But who they found in Hutchinson's Field and in Forbes Woods, it's a sign that they're competing because the resources are so good. So it's an interesting situation right now that we've made the estuary so attractive to these wonderful birds of prey that they're competing to be here. Well, the men, of course, are.
Of course, Milton is what? Best town in America?
Of course. So. We thought people would like to know about that.
But they died in combat.
Actually, supposedly.
With valor.
Isn't that interesting?
Very.
It's sad, I think, but okay.
All right, thank you. Back to Keolis, sir. Would you identify yourself, please?
Kyle Fair from Fair Dermody here representing Keolis.
Good evening, Kyle. Welcome. What can you tell us about this request for determination of applicability?
I'll tell you all you need to know, I think. What we're here doing is, I will point out that this is Keolis, the commuter services. This is the purple lines. Just to point that out, this is the only portion of any right-of-way within Milton we're here to discuss. The portion of the right-of-way that we're going to be speaking about is roughly a quarter-mile portion, sort of towards the north end of town, right next to the Neponset River, next to the old abandoned dam area.
This is the Fairmount line that goes from Reedville into Boston.
They call this the Dorchester branch.
Yeah, it's called the Fairmount line. Lots of people take it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, starts in Reedville there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is basically, I mean, this delineation has been, for as long as I've been doing this, pretty standard because the resources in that area don't seem to change. What we have, and what we're doing is our herbicide application in order to maintain the tracks and maintain them in a vegetation-free state. We go out and we identify the areas that are subject to protection under the rights-of-way management protection regulations, and we put permanent markings on the tracks and use these maps as a way to convey where and what we've protected to the commissions, and as a way to convey to the applicators where to look for these permanent marks while they're out there actually applying. In Milton, there are 2 specific, we'll call them zones. There is a yellow zone and a blue zone. There are actually 2 yellow zones that interrupt the blue zone itself. Yellow zones, those are zones that are not applicable, not applied to, excuse me. Those zones are areas where water, wetlands, water over wetlands, anything required for protection under the Rights-of-Way Management Regulation Act happen to fall within 10 feet of our proposed activity. The activity is, as I said, herbicide application that is done 10 feet either side of the center line of track. So it is a 20-foot wide pattern. These yellow zones indicate areas where we are required to shut off application because we're not able to keep a 10-foot protective buffer between our application and any sensitive area. Specifically, these 2 areas in Milton are open deck bridges, one over the Neponset and one over a small stream just prior to that. The other area we're protecting here is riverfront area. We're required to protect the entire riverfront area with a sensitive application. The sensitive application is indicated by this blue zone. It is done once per year. It is done with chemicals off of DAR's sensitive area material list. This year it does happen to be a glyphosate derivative. It is applied at its
Like Roundup, right?
It is, yes, it's called Aquaneat. It has been Roundup in the past. Roundup is a brand name. But yes, it's the active ingredient in Roundup. And it actually requires us
know.
only to apply
Is
in
that
that
the
pattern
last
I
one?
described, the 10-foot either side of center line. And as far as going any further, I'm not sure I need to, because that's the delineation itself, so.
A couple things. One, am I the only one missing? I don't have a plan. Is there one in the packet?
It should be at the very last page of the packet that was passed out. If you have a packet. Front page looks like this.
I don't think we got it, Kathy.
I don't think so.
We got it last month. Yes, it was in last month.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
I have an extra one here, and actually, I don't really need the one I have because I know.
Do you want to grab that? Or-
We,
Yes, we saw it last month then.
we have an issue that may have nothing to do with you, but it is appropriate to bring it up. 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, the MBTA came out, and you know the trolley line from Ashmont to Mattapan, they used an herbicide there that we described as napalm. I have no idea what it was, but it destroyed every living creature, thing, plant. It was bizarre. And they came in and gave the same, and I'm not suggesting that yours is not completely accurate. I don't know, nobody knows what they used, but it was devastating. And in addition, they cut some trees, this one, like on Elliott Street, between Central Avenue and Adams Street, right near the Baker Chocolate. And there's a section of the line, similarly, you know, they've got the same issues of you know, plant growth near their electric lines. But go back over what you're using and who's approved it and what the concentration is. Something happened, and it devastated the area. We came to a consent agreement with MBTA, and then they ran out of funds, and we can now frame our consent agreement with them and put it on the wall, I guess. But we've had some difficulties in this area. Now, there are two parts to that. One was the cutting that was excessive. The other one was whatever the chemicals they used was not good.
I can't, though Keolis is the operator of the MBTA's right away, the Keolis is a completely separate entity.
I'm aware of that.
I don't represent the MBTA and their activities on the trolley line. I can give you some guidance in that they should, if they're applying herbicides, especially under the rights-of-way management regulations, which they are required to do, even though the trolley lines are not part of the general system, they are considered a right-of-way. They should have submitted to the commission a yearly operational plan with those chemicals. It sounds like they didn't.
Well, they did originally. I mean, we've been around a long time, and I saw that they periodically come back and update their 5-year plan.
The yearly
So that would-
operational plan has that year's chemicals, so it would have been specific to whichever year you're questioning. The 5-year filing is just to renew the delineation of the sensitive areas along the right-of-way. Just
Okay. But the approval of the chemicals, and I'm including not just the chemical, but the concentration, has been approved by whom?
DAR handles pesticide application and the
What is DAR?
Department of Agricultural Resources.
Okay.
And as far as I know, they handle all enforcement of that as well. If you had an issue with MBTA, it would have been more appropriate and probably much more effective to go through DAR to make sure that all the proper channels and T's were crossed and I's were dotted. But as far as pesticide and the pesticide enforcement board, that's a DAR enforcement arm. Our chemical, I can say, Well, one, they've been using it out there for at least the 12 years I've been doing this. And I think you can probably all attest to the fact, especially if you've ridden the train, it does not look like they've sprayed the right of way with napalm. But other than that, I really don't, it doesn't seem to pertain to exactly what we're talking about. I don't know what else
Okay.
you'd like me to.
No, I'm not calling upon you to defend the MBTA. What I'm
That would be
asking
hard.
is, that would be hard. But no, what I was asking is whether or not the approval of the chemical includes an approval of the concentration, because I think the problem that we had with the tea was a concentration issue as opposed to a particular chemical. And I didn't know who is, keeping an eye on what the
Right.
concentration is.
So DAR does do that. I will state that the glyphosate, especially that we're using here, and the sensitive area material list itself is maintained by DAR. Addition of chemicals and subtraction of chemicals is completely at their whim and assumed to be done with some sort of concerted effort to keep the environment in their best interest, because that list includes a lot of chemicals that are approved for aquatic use. Actually, at this concentration, the Roundup or glyphosate is approved for aquatic use. We still do, as part of the rights-of-way management regulations, keep a 10-foot buffer to the activity. Our particular concentration is dictated by them, and what it ends up being is the lowest labeled rate that we could apply this with the concentration obviously diluted in water to actually achieve any sort of kill in the field of the plant life. So it is a very small concentration.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Are the concentrations mixed on site, or are they pre-mixed in a facility and distributed?
No. The applicators mix.
They
each
do it on
day.
site,
They,
so-
well, yeah. I mean, they don't do it within sensitive areas and stuff. They do
Right.
it the morning of at the rail yard.
At the area?
Yeah, because they have to be able to take on a mass amount of water, and they usually use rail facilities and water
Sure.
facilities to do that. It's a large truck.
So basically, they're mixing a truck at a time?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of pictures if you want to see exactly how the application is done and what
Yeah,
the
actually, that was
equipment
another question is, they're driving a truck down along the lines?
Yeah, it is a large rail-mounted vehicle. You can see in that picture that I flipped to, it is spraying in that picture, and same with that one. So you can see it's a low pressure mist foliar application. It's applied usually about 10 to 18 inches above the track, directly down.
Yeah. Did they take into account wind conditions, whether or not they proceed, kind of go ahead with it, or?
Yes,
not?
wind and rain. Obviously,
rain.
any additional water diluting it would
Sure.
not work. And
I'm
wind,
just thinking of wind taking it and throwing it over all the bushes.
yes, obviously, because it's a mist foliar application, drift is a concern, so they do keep wind in mind when they're out there. There is no set specific wind, quote unquote, speed that it's
Right.
more an applicator's best judgment.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions from commissioners? Other abutters to the property or members of the public that would like to ask a question or make a comment? All right, this is a request for determination of applicability. Do you have any concerns about where the mixing takes place?
He was just saying in the rail
I
yard.
know where it is, but in terms of proximity to the river? It's on the Boston side, or where is it actually mixed?
For
Which
this
town?
particular, I mean, I couldn't say specifically, depending on which end they start. I mean, but it's usually mixed at the rail yard because they have to have access to water facilities to fill the truck. So, and plus, once you're out there, you don't stop
Right, you just,
because you'd be in the way. So I can't. There's no scenario where they would stop and mix anywhere near the river, and they're not even allowed to based on our vegetation management plan and the regulations. So you're not
All right, that's
allowed-
my only concern.
Yeah, you're not allowed to mix. You're not allowed to mix with insensitive resource areas.
What about within the buffer?
Yeah, our buffer to the resource area is 100 feet. So I think your buffer here in Milton is what? Do you?
Well, it's
honor the
100
25?
feet, but this is a river, so it's 200 feet.
Well, it's the riverfront
200
area.
feet for the
right.
state.
Right. So we don't mix within riverfront area. Anything that is sensitive as far as our buffer area and our no spray area, we are not allowed to mix or
Okay.
or any activities like that. that's part of our approved vegetation management plan.
Okay.
Is it possible to test after the fact? I'm just thinking of the napalm. Is it possible to test after the fact? To evaluate what kind of, you talked about DAR coming in
that
and
would
being.
be, that's not a part of what we're required to do. That's
No,
again, the
I'm-
pesticide board and DAR would be the ones to approach on that.
Yep.
That's not,
But is there a reasonable time limit in terms of evaluating what was actually applied? If there is a problem, does it basically kind of break down in 6 months and after that you're done? Or
quicker.
quicker than that?
Yeah, I mean, DAR has done a number of tests on drift and on leaching in the soil.
Sure.
You know, we do primarily use a glyphosate derivative, which is considered immobile in soil. I think it has the ability, or has been found as much as anywhere from 6 to 18 inches below the surface of the soil that it was applied to,
Sure.
which, you know, is why there's a zone that you don't apply for here in Milton. It's a surface water, drinking water, and
Right.
that reduces the frequency with which we can spray, and that's with that in mind that they do that. But there are a few tests that DAR has done. They did drift off of site down in Attleboro, I believe, and with respect to riverfront area and the you know, the protection for riverfront area, whether that was adequate at the time. It was a 2006 study that they did. And then there was one done in Boxborough, I believe, testing more for migration off site or.
Anything
Thank you.
else? Any other questions? So I think we should have some restrictions on the motion, meaning no mixing within the riverfront area, which is, you do that anyway, and no mixing within the 100-foot buffer zone to a wetland.
Right.
Right, make sense?
Makes sense, yeah.
All right, have a motion
So moved.
to approve an RDA, issue a negative determination with that condition that there be no mixing within the,
With the conditions.
okay, and also that both the chemical and the concentration are approved by DAR.
Yes, and it's submitted as part of our YLP. You can make comments on that every year when we submit the YLP for
Okay.
review. So that, yes, everything is approved
How
by
often
DA.
do you do this? Once
A year.
a year?
Yeah, because we aren't allowed to apply any more than that in Milton due to the sensitive areas that are identified in the field.
All right, with those conditions,
Second?
any discussion? All in favor? Done. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it, Kyle.
If it's any consolation, I was fired by the MBTA 2 weeks ago. I wasn't going to throw that in to start, but I figured I'd
It's not a bad thing to start with.
John, just to add,
I haven't lost.
I've observed this being done on Cape Cod on the railway.
Thank you.
On the railway,
Yeah.
did the train still operate?
Yes.
Right there.
And it's very specific and very well controlled, the operation of
It
it.
should be.
Yeah,
You
it
should have
is.
seen that Elliott Street.
can only imagine.
It was frightening. It was frightening.
Yeah.
We couldn't decide if it was napalm or some kind of a nuclear strike. It was one of them.
Not bad.
It's like the surface of the moon.
All right, thanks, folks. Next on the agenda, request for determination of applicability, Milton Outer Marker Maker Facility, Granite Avenue.
Yes.
Should be marked.
Lenora's going to give her report.
Okay, thank you so much.
Good evening,
My
hi.
name's Kevin Grant with the Federal Aviation Administration. As I'm sure you're all aware, we have a project proposed to go into construction sometime this summer, and it's for the demolition of a outer marker site that used to service Boston Logan 4 Right. This is outdated technology, we don't use it any longer, so we'd like to remove the site and return it back to the landowner, which is MassDOT.
Explain to people what this was.
Okay, I mean, I am not a navigational engineer, so I can't tell you in great detail, but it is a navigational aid. It was used to basically line planes up on the approach to runway 4 right and give them a distance to the runway threshold. I'm not exactly sure how it all works, but there's basically two antennas, an outer marker antenna and a non-directional beacon antenna that were on the site, and somehow they gave a signal to aircraft on direction and basically lined them up on the center line.
We made them fly right over my house.
They have nothing to do with that.
And it's located on Granite Ave.
Yes, right near the I-93 exit 11
On-ramp.
on-ramp. Yep.
Yeah.
On-ramp.
Yeah, it's in a little depression right in there.
Is it ongoing right now?
No, it's, I believe there's still power to the site, but it's been turned off and it's no longer in use. So part of our local SSC, which is our local technicians, are in the process of getting the utility company to shut off power.
Because there is construction there now. In the last couple of days.
Yeah, I've seen
Have you
it.
seen it?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some
It's the
material.
same area.
Yeah,
And I don't know what I saw some pipes.
forms, yeah.
Forms, right. All right, but what's your construction, phasing? What's your
It takes
timeline?
1 day, 1 to 2 days on site, and that's about it. Right now, we don't have a start date. We're working on that. It'll probably be sometime in the late June, July timeframe. But on-site work, 1 to 2 days.
And is there any, I'm just trying to visualize it. It doesn't sound like it's going, there's no downgrade into the
Subsurface,
wetlands that I can think of.
No.
No, and the only thing that I could potentially be a concern is I believe there's one catch basin in that area, and it was kind of grassed over when I went to walk the site. I'm not exactly sure where that goes to, but if it's a concern, we certainly have no problem putting in, silt fences or hay bales around that catch basin
Okay.
in the event that any sediment runoff from our site happens, will prevent it from entering that catch basin.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in a triangle between the on-ramp, the off-ramp, and Granite Avenue. And the piece that you walked earlier this year is further down Granite Avenue
Correct.
from the off-ramp.
It's closer to Squantum Street.
That's correct. Yeah.
And that's why I don't see the water going anywhere, but I think
agree.
that's a good point, to put hay bales and silt fencing around the catch basin, or some kind of a filter trap.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay.
So the submission doesn't include any delineation. I'm wondering about adjacency and delineation, and why are we talking about this?
The only reason is, when I looked at it, it appeared that it might be within the 100-foot buffer zone, but that on-ramp basically cuts it off from that, so it's hydraulically not connected.
Right.
It is in the floodplain. I know you guys sometimes have issues with floodplains. I didn't really see any real issues here, but I put in the RDA at the request of the commission.
Okay, and then the plan is basically to remove everything associated with this, including footings and fence posts and...
Yep, all
it's-
footings, we plan to demo to 3 feet below grade, at least at the, at the maximum. If it goes below that, we'll probably just leave that there.
Sure.
Everything else, we plan on removing. There's some conduits, some copper wire under there, stuff like that. The antennas, the wood posts will come out. By the time we leave, there'll be nothing left visible at the site.
In restoration,
Restoration is at the discretion of the DOT, but we have put in the scope of work that you see in the RDA, and we are waiting to get buy-off from them. We may already have it. I haven't talked to our real estate folks yet, but if they buy off on that, we'll probably leave it as is, and the natural grass that was there we'll probably reestablish. At most, they may require us to seed.
once the pad is removed.
Yeah, once we're basically, when we leave the site, it'll be basically topsoil seeded over and.
Right.
we'll
So
call it that.
that's what I wanted to
would be
get
the
at.
restoration
It's going to
part.
come up to grade
Yep,
and then seeded.
yeah.
Yeah.
We will plan on grading it to match the existing contours. Right now, it's according to the scope of work, we're not planning on seeding it, but if DOT requests that we do, we will.
Why wouldn't we request?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That wouldn't make any sense to leave it up to their discretion. I mean,
Right.
we need to,
It was only part of the permit with DOT and it was an old permit, I'm not even sure they still have it on file, that they had official buy-off on the restoration. However, if that's a requirement of yours, then we could
right.
certainly add
It's
that.
going to be
Make it a condition.
$20.
Yeah, that's not a concern.
Well, this would be an ideal location to have it overseeded with wildflower mix.
Sure.
Would be.
Totally
there any-
exposed, lots of sunlight. Otherwise, throwaway land would be a good use for it.
Sure.
No
I agree.
trees. Any chemicals or liquids that would be released during the deconstruction?
There is a R22 refrigerant on our AC unit there, and the contractor will have somebody come out there and remove that prior to demolition of the building. But that's it.
And no transformers or any other?
It'll be
At least
very
the
nice to see
transformer is
that
from the
gone.
utility pole, and that's utilities, so we won't be touching that. We
But
just
with-
take out the secondary feed from our power meters.
And do you know if they're planning on removing the utility?
I do not
or
know.
You don't know?
But it would be good for wildflowers, but also for trees. It would be a good spot to put a couple of trees in.
They may have,
Easily.
wasn't there another spot that they
Or
had
both.
issues regarding visibility?
Right, I agree with
Trees,
you.
that might be an issue.
Yeah, and I think that might also be why MassDOT had the final say on the restoration, because they do have sighting issues.
I agree.
I don't know if they have the final say. Or
But there are some trees there already, I believe, so,
I think
volunteers.
some willows are there,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how high or anything like that, but.
Well, I suggest we go with the wildflower mix.
Yeah.
And then if, in their discretion, they want to put trees in there, that'll be great too.
Right.
All right. Any other questions? Any questions, comments, suggestions by the public? Hearing none, is there a motion to issue a negative determination on the RDA with those special conditions that the restoration will include a wildflower mix?
And protection of the
Catch basin.
catch basin.
Absolutely.
So, second?
Okay. And you've got that's both, that's silt protection, hay bales.
So a wattle and a silt fence would be,
And that's
Yes.
native wildflowers, native.
uh,
Get that mix.
okay. This I'll assume will be written in the determination that you.
That's correct.
Send back to me, okay.
That's correct. All right, that's motion's been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Hi.
Done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to make sure that we're clear too, in the conditions that it's up to grade.
Yes.
Yes.
You get that, Kathy?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thanks. Next on the agenda is number 3, proposed gas main relay project on School Street. Kathy, anybody appearing for that?
I don't believe so.
Is that to be continued, or I don't know what it is?
I think it was informational only, just as a courtesy to let the commission,
From whom?
National Grid.
Okay. All right, will you reach out and find out why they didn't show, or why we don't know?
Actually, because it's outside your jurisdiction, they just were trying to inform you that they're going to replace the utilities.
Where?
School Street.
On School Street. From pretty much from the brook to, short of the brook to Central.
Well, what do you mean short of the brook? Well, who says it's not jurisdictional?
No, they have a plan.
But what I'm saying is, I'm sorry, I don't have the right one here, but
It doesn't
how
have
do
a
we know?
dimension on it that indicates the dimension from the bridge. There's no distance indicated from the bridge, but they've stopped short.
Okay.
They're also, it's part of what the town is doing too, by replacing the main there, but they're doing it together. In that area, replacing the
Water
utility, the
main.
water line.
Yeah.
So I think it was at the request of the town of Milton for them to do it at the same time.
Yes. But what's that have to do with the jurisdiction? I mean, whether it's the town or National Grid, are they, I understand they may be exempt as a utility from the town bylaw, but they're still subject to the Wetlands Protection Act. So the question is whether or not it's jurisdictional or not, and we don't know. Are they saying that they are not? We don't know. I can't tell.
I read it, that it said that they were exempt, because utilities were exempt from.
No, there are parts of the Wetlands Protection Act, I mean, there are exceptions for them, and they certainly bypass the town bylaw. But if they're
You're saying they're exempt
jurisdictional,
from regulations?
I don't think they're exempt from all regulations.
1, 2, 3. Take a look at the third paragraph, John, that's on the cover page, that's where they're making their claim.
but not substantially change or enlarge an existing and lawfully located structure or facility. Provided said work utilizes the best practical measures to avoid and minimize impacts of the wetland resource areas. I don't know, I'd just like to know how far away, are they going, when you combine the national grid with the town, are they going over the bridge, through the bridge?
Based on the drawing, they're stopping short, but there's no dimension on the drawing that shows how far short they're stopping.
Yeah, that's what I saw. All right, well, if it's just informational, can you find out, DPW would know, how far away from the bridge they are? I mean, I can eyeball it. Is there any kind of a, and I know this is not to scale, but is there a, what purports to be a legend here?
Yeah, there is actually a scale.
And that's 100? How many feet is that? That's pretty small.
That's 80.
80 feet, that one.
Yeah, so they've stopped 80 feet short based on the scale.
And that's Pine Tree Brook?
Yep.
Is that a perennial stream? Is that 200 feet? It sounds like it's jurisdictional, but I understand the exemption. Can you find out what, from DPW, and just, give us some feedback as to,
They did look at it, John Thompson, he did like the whole proposal.
okay.
So I will ask him to send up an email.
Say that again?
Send you an email?
Yeah, that would be good. All right. All right, any other thoughts or questions on this? Nope. Members of the public? Hearing none, we'll await the confirmation from DPW. Thanks. Next on the agenda is Enforcement Order 1131 Randolph Avenue.
Kathy, you asked me to copy all of us.
Yes, yes.
There's a chair.
Yep, thank you.
Yep, thanks, Jim.
Good evening, my name is Jim Burke with DeSalle Burke and Associates, and I'm here tonight representing Copeland Properties with regards to the enforcement order on 1131 Randolph Avenue. The plan that you have in front of you is a revision of the last one that you saw. We went out and surveyed it, located the additional...
Jim, explain to people where this is, the Pepsi plant. and
Oh,
such,
sure.
so
Yeah, it's
people know.
right behind the Pepsi plant. It's land that has been used for a nursery stock for a number of years, and right now it's being used by, is that their, no, that's not their nursery.
A. Thomas.
Hey, Tom,
Oh, wait,
hey, Thomas.
Thomas, yep. Yeah, screw up. There's too many nurseries in Milton. But they unfortunately encroached into the 100-foot buffer and actually into the 25-foot no disturb zone, and we're, at this point now, proposing this restoration plan that's in front of you tonight. Right now, I have, and it's certainly subject to your review, I've got 6 gray birch running right along the buffer, and Scott Morrison, I talked to Scott Morrison, a wetland scientist, and I asked him about species and the like. He chose them, I chose the locations. I chose the birch because the birch, in that tree line behind it, inside the wetlands, that's what's in there now. Those are actually planted trees, nursery stock back in the day, so I figured I'll blend the birch together and form that as a limit. I also proposed some signage. I've seen some low signage in the past, 8 by 16 signs that just with statement saying you're getting close to the wetlands. Proposed that also 25-foot center on that demarcation. And also we proposed various shrubs within that 25-foot buffer to restore it.
Are you putting 6 in because you think it's appropriate, or are you
Yeah,
trying to match our performance standards?
No.
I see, I don't know what was removed.
Yeah, I have no idea what was removed, to tell you the truth.
Does anybody?
No, it was pulled, when I was there,
Done.
it was done, yeah. I mean, they were clearing it to plant, so they were pulling stuff out.
But to the extent we have a 3-to-1 performance standard,
Yes.
do you think that from what you've seen, and I know maybe...
Did they
you just-
take 2 out? No, they took more than 2 out.
All right, so do we need more than 6, and does it make sense here?
I would refer to somebody with a little more experience in landscaping and plantings, whether the density of 25 foot, I don't know, with 2.5 to 3 inch trees is appropriate, and if you wanted additional, more than we'd probably plant them somewhere else. I didn't think you'd want it that dense to let kind of go in.
Perfect, that's a great point, but the reason I asked is that we do have a bank,
Right.
that if more trees are appropriate under our performance standard, that we can put them into the bank to be used by the town to plant somewhere else.
Like I say, without having any kind of knowledge, and if you take a look at the trees that were out there that were cleared, given that these were the nursery trees that are also out there,
Right.
they're fairly scrawny. No offense to those nursery trees, but,
They take no offense.
you don't know that. You might. But, yeah, so I mean, I just basically, I did the count, Scott provided the species, and that's what's in front of you today. I'm also looking to get a written operational management plan together for the work in the 100-foot buffer for you guys as well. So this isn't the last of it, it's just kind of the beginning of how we're proceeding to correct what went on, so.
This is a little bit like the fox guarding the chicken house, but can we ask somebody at Thomas Nursery, how many trees did you take out?
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Okay.
Good place to start.
It is. I don't know. I know we had a citizen that was concerned with the activity, and that citizen, may have some sense. Kathy, you might be able to reach out to that person and
And the
ask.
gray birches, I mean, they're okay. They're slow growing, and they're not going to take up much space. They're a narrow tree unless they branch at the... I think we could do better than gray birches. I think we could do maybe 6 of those plus something more interesting, like a
I put
Tupelo.
some alternatives down by John's hand there.
Oh, okay. I mean, something that would give us, some food for the birds. I'm thinking Tupelos would be wonderful, and I bet that Andrew Thomas could find some Tupelos for us. You could probably fit another 6 Tupelos in there as well. Why don't you
Well,
ask him
but
about that?
I don't know what you mean by in there, because these are demarcating the
But
25
25
foot.
feet is more than enough space here for this sort of tree. I mean, it's a
Well,
decent
that's
tree.
fine, but well, let me ask Jim.
I'm saying you
Am
could
I
add
correct
twice as
that
many trees there. You
they're
could.
trying, yeah, but in the rest of the buffer? Because what's the plan
The
here?
plan is to use the land as nursery stock, so.
Including the next 75 feet, or are you staying out of the 100
Yes,
feet?
Including the next 75 feet. So that's where we're going to be coming in with the management plan to make sure that what we're doing in that jurisdictional area is acceptable.
Yeah.
When we're going to be using that land to cultivate
Under a
and sell.
farming exemption?
Yes, exactly right.
So that's why I say that, because I thought you were thinking there is plenty of room out here, but
Right.
they're talking about using this as farming.
As well, okay. And these are 25-foot off-center?
Correct.
Yeah, you could put many more trees. I mean, you could do them every 12 feet. So in between this, you could put Tupelos.
That's.
And instead of lining them up, you could kind of space
Stagger
them.
'em.
Yeah,
Well, I thought the
exactly
reason
more.
for lining them up was to use them as delineation.
You
as
could do
opposed
that, and
to-
then the other ones also stagger them. So you'd still get the line, it just wouldn't be the only line.
sure.
It would fill in a little bit as well.
The reason I chose the gray birch too is that I can notice those from the parking lot, so,
Right.
you know what I mean? So I figured,
They get so white, people think they're white birches too, eventually,
yeah, exactly.
Other questions?
Yeah.
So can you explain the roof rainwater containment and the proposed rain garden?
That actually was approved on an existing order of conditions, and it's been built, and I owe you an as-built.
I'm not opposed to it, I just wanted to know about it.
Well,
No, that was the old one.
yeah, this,
Yeah.
we just took the old plan that you guys approved and kind of,
Mushed it in.
yeah, pushed it in.
Okay.
All that stuff's in already.
done.
And done.
Perfect.
And it's one of the,
That's related to the thing that, with the,
yeah.
The outflow on the other side.
When Steve Ivis was,
right,
yeah.
okay.
So, but whose line is this here?
That's Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison's the B line,
And
and
the,
Steve Ivis is the other line.
on the B line, what's the date on the B line?
Geez, he just did it, so it's, he did it after all the vegetation was cleared, so when we heard that you guys were issuing an enforcement order, I sent Scott out to delineate.
Okay. So we should
I can put that note on
review,
the plan.
we should review that.
Yeah, the flags are in there, right, we marked the 100-foot buffer as well,
Okay.
to make sure that Mr. Thomas knew where that was. And,
What was the date we
For our
selected?
sidewalk for
What's the date of what, the Steve
Sidewalk,
Ivis line?
the sidewalk.
Oh, the sidewalk
Memorial Day
is
weekend.
28th.
5/28.
Okay, good, thank you.
All right, so we may have to, we
Yes.
may have to juggle this, but this is the first one on the list right now anyway, so let's say 8 o'clock,
Okay.
Saturday, the 28th.
The 28th,
on Memorial Day weekend,
yes.
really?
We're
You had
dedicated.
no other plans, Jim. What would you rather do?
You ever heard of the Fagawi?
Yes. I have.
May 28th, 8 AM. All right.
It'll be great going to the Cape after this. I'll be right behind you, bumper to bumper.
Do you want me to revise the plans to include the cupolas at this
Yes.
point?
Yes.
Okay. Do you like the shrubs? Not enough shrubs? I got 19 shrubs in there right now to kind of, there's about 1,500 square feet.
Rich hazel, plethora, arrowwood, yeah, that's fine.
See, you've got the 6 gray birch, the shrubs, the 19 shrubs.
Plus
Six-
6 tupelos,
Six cupolas.
black tupelos.
Okay.
Can you turn off the layers for the work that was done already, that's already complete, just to clean
Sure.
up? Just so the scope on the drawing is
Yeah.
pertinent? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's there for me too, to have me get the as-built done, so. So,
But on the drawing that's submitted for this scope, if you could turn off the other stuff, that'd be great.
no problem.
Okay.
I mean, okay, I think honestly, would you be opposed to showing the as-built information on this?
That,
I think so. I think we need a separate record for the
Okay.
prior enforcement order.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine, we can do that.
All right, so any other questions from commissioners, abutters, members of the public, questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll see you on the 28th, or somebody.
Somebody will.
All right, all right, thank you very much. This one's ours?
Yes.
do you want that?
Kathy, I'll leave this for you.
I'd like to have this.
Okay, now, next on the agenda, notice of intent, 693, 711 Randolph Avenue.
Just an update, status quo. There's still a lot of issues that aren't even related to wetlands that the attorneys are dealing with on this job. Certainly the order of conditions or notice of intent is included in that.
So the appeal is still pending?
Absolutely.
Jim, what is 693, 711 Randolph Ave, so people would know?
The
Big line.
Holland Apartments, it's the old Meg Lane property that was right behind the DPW yard that is being proposed for a 40B residential development off of Randolph Ave.
All right, so that's just informational?
Yeah, and I just wanted to, I don't think we're going to have anything to discuss until the end of the summer, given the fact that it's summer. So,
Okay.
The wheels of justice turn slow during the summer.
Exceedingly so. That's true. All right, good. Any questions Commissioners, members of the public? All right, we're good. Thank
Would
you
you like
for
to
the-
schedule another hearing for us to come in? You want to put it to September? Or do you want to just,
Well, again, I think I've said this before, I don't want you to be blindsided. I think if it comes back, I think we've discussed that we'll probably be looking for a hydrology report. And I know you've said that you've already done the hydrology report, but going back just about a year.
no, I know, and yeah, I remember.
Okay.
So, you
All
know,
right. I just don't want you to be surprised if you come in and then we say, hey, we'd like to have a hydrology report.
I'm sure Mr. Holland will not be surprised, but
Okay,
I'll let him know that that is still your concern.
okay.
And
If
I
September is
noticed-
good for you, it's good for us.
Okay, yeah, September's fine. I believe.
Okay, unless you think that that would impact upon,
If
a
something
hydrology report.
happens, I'll certainly let Kathy know and
you can advance it.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
fine, that's fine with us, okay.
First meeting in September. And I noticed Mr. McNaught in the audience, and we did a plan for him for his addition, and if you wanted me to stick around for that, if you anticipate any questions for me on that, or no?
We may have some questions, so I think the answer is yes. I don't expect that to be very long, so we might, is that the only one you've got?
That's the only one left, yeah.
We might be able to just, jump over to that. I think it'll be quick. Mike, I'll tell you right away, my concern is that we're looking at this and it's I believe it's a 2001 delineation. That's a problem. And I don't know if you can
Understood.
fix that.
Well, understood. I think, I think from a standpoint of, you don't like to go on people's property and flag wetlands. It's caused problems in the past. So we took the record information, applied it to,
Why don't we call it?
oh, okay.
All right, and then we can address it, and this won't take long, 'cause I know.
As long as
I'm
it doesn't take long, because other people are, waiting as well, John.
Right. Number 8 on the list is request for determination of applicability, 14 Herrick Drive. Is Mr. McNaught is not here.
He was here a moment ago.
Greg, what are you doing, sleeping? Come ahead, you're on.
No, I skipped ahead for you.
Unaccustomed.
Sorry about that. I just, like I said, if I can clear things up for him, or for yourselves, I think I can.
Where did he go?
I think he's getting more plans. He's prepared.
I thought it was just be a question of we got to go out and see it.
Like I say, his addition is 200 square feet attached to the existing house. That's going to sit on an existing paved driveway. And historically. that-
Okay, can you back up and introduce yourself?
Sure. Good evening, again, Jim Burke with the Burke and Associates here with Craig McNaught for
14 Herrick.
Herrick Drive in Milton, Mass. Mr. McNaught came in and asked us to define where his 100-foot buffer and any sort of other wetland resources on his property in relationship to a 200-foot addition to the rear of his garage. We did that for him, generated a plan, which I believe is part of your record, and the real issue was determining whether this was in a jurisdictional area for the commission. You have, on the adjacent lot, you have BVW, you have riparian, riverfront, and floodplain. And we're outside the floodplain, we're outside the 100-foot buffer of the BVW, and we're also outside the riverfront. That Pine Tree Brook riverfront is a man-made channel, which certainly hasn't been altered in that location.
Is the 200-foot riverfront on this?
I shot you, I didn't print that plan, but the plan itself, there is a plan that I emailed to you that shows that 200-foot riverfront as requested. I think the one Craig gave you doesn't have it, the one I was looking at. But I can sit here and say that's not,
There's one done by Stewart.
By whom?
Stewart on lot 15.
this is that plan that references all of the wetland resources. So that's how we built ours off a property line, and we traced that information in to our plan.
And this is in 99, so it's 17 years.
There was several iterations, but it's still 2001. I agree, it's old, but like I say, even if there's no wetlands on Craig's lot, Craig's lot's fully developed, with the driveway, lawn, and the like, and what we're proposing is a small addition within a paved area of the lot.
I'm taking out one of my parking spaces.
What are you, 14?
Yeah.
Which is,
That's main.
that's 15. 15 I know.
Yep.
So where's 14?
Here, I'll take the things off. Garage is gonna be down here.
Oh, I see, it's over this way. So the outer riparian is here. I got you, okay.
You can put one on top of the other, okay? This is the line from this point, okay? And here's my garage.
Gotcha. So this line is the riparian,
Right.
100-foot, there are 200-foot markers, okay. Gotcha, all right. All right, so it appears to be non-jurisdictional. My only concern is that it's, we don't have a record. I mean, it seems to be clearly outside, and I know that wetlands don't move that fast, that far. But to the extent that it's 2001, that map was 1999, but 2001 is the wetlands delineation?
Correct. Well, it was it was the latest revision on the plan that's referenced on my plan.
What's the date? 2001.
2001.
2001. That's this one here. This is by Stewart,
Richard
51701,
1701, right.
up on the right-hand side.
And
there.
the title of the plan is Plan of Land Showing Wetland Delineation and Existing Conflicts. So,
I just, because we have a 3-year performance standard for approving wetland lines, if it were close, I'd be hung up on it. It doesn't look like it's close,
Yeah.
but what I suggest is that on the 28th, we just kind of eyeball it.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that
to
makes
everybody?
sense. Let's do that.
I don't want to approve that line, but I think we can look at it, and if it's,
right.
unless the earth is shifted somehow on its axis.
Right, I think you can issue a negative determination, given the fact that you're trading impervious area for impervious area, even if it was within the jurisdictional area, my opinion. But,
Oh, that may be entirely true.
so,
My concern is completely different, and that is just approving a line that's 15 years old.
well,
That's my only hangup.
okay.
We're not putting in any new, we're not delineating any new lines.
No, I know that, but I don't want to approve a line that's 15 years old.
Right, I think you could work the decision in there that says we don't see any impact on the wetlands, but we also don't,
We've done it before when we've said we'll issue a negative determination, but we're not approving that particular line, because let's say it moved 5 feet.
Right, but
It's not going to make any difference to you.
I understand, John, but there is no line.
Well,
I'm working on land that's already been approved by the commission. I'm taking out asphalt and building a garage.
Well, I think-
I'm not pushing it anywhere. I mean,
It's not the project,
Right.
maybe it's process, form over substance, but my concern is that we don't want to approve a line that we don't need to. So I'd rather eyeball it and say, yep, It looks like
It's 100, more than 100 feet
more than
away.
100
That's
feet.
fine.
And then we can issue a negative determination, if appropriate. We could issue the negative determination based
Based on your
not upon a
information.
2001 line, but our expert vision as we look at the wetlands.
Great.
All right?
Okay,
Whatever keeps you happy.
20,
May 28th.
28th.
28.
28th, all right. 8,
You want to do that one first
Good.
instead? Make Craig make us coffee?
We'll probably have to decide what.
we'll have to
the best-
rearrange it anyway, so why
Yeah.
don't we make it 8:30 and, but you could still make coffee. All right?
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you very much. And thanks to the public for their patience with this process.
Thank you.
Good night. Next on the agenda is notice of intent, 1904 Canton Avenue. That's a Trailside Museum.
Where did that like go?
How about this, Mr.
Went to the head of the class.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Thanks. Oh, sure. Thank you.
So-
With different packages.
Norman, I was talking earlier about the eagles, how you were telling us about the bald eagles and how you had found a couple.
That's right.
Yeah. People were interested in why that might have happened.
I can fill you in on that, too.
Okay.
My name is Norman Smith. I'm the director of the Blue Hills Trailside Museum, and I work for Mass Audubon, and we're doing a collaborative project between Mass Audubon and the DCR to enhance the otter exhibit that was built at the museum back in 1959 and has seen no improvement since it was built, and well overdue, using the existing area and trying to enhance it for a better viewing of the otter itself, and also to meet the USDA requirements and the safety of the staff that actually care for it. If you want to stop for 1 second, we can talk about the bald eagles in Milton. Eagles in Massachusetts were declined to the point where there was one nesting pair back in 1902 in Sandwich, Mass. Between 1902 and 1982, eagles were taken from Maine for a 4-year period in Canada and brought out to Quabbin Reservoir and hacked out from a hack tower. In 1987, the first pair of eagles came and bred on Mount Rushmore out at Quabbin, a site which created the first eagle nest in Massachusetts since 1902. And since that time, eagles have expanded to the point where this year we know of at least 56 nesting pairs in the state.
cool.
So it's a good news story, and I never thought I'd live to see eagles actually nesting in Milton, Massachusetts, but we actually have a pair of eagles that are nesting here now. They've been setting up housekeeping for 2 years and nesting this year, and it's gotten to the point where there are so many eagles around in the state that these birds are having territorial fights, and we've had 3 eagles that have been found dead in the past year in Milton, one in the Milton Cemetery, one in the Neponset Marshes, and one that was actually hit by a train. It was feeding on a deer carcass down on the train station in Canton. So these eagles, when they do battle, one thing we didn't realize is sometimes they actually fight to the end, and when an eagle comes into territory of another eagle, they actually will fight and perforate the air sacs, they get infections, and they die from it. And so we've had 2 eagles in Milton here that have died, and there's no determination as the cause of those deaths. It's not from an impact, it's not from anything that we know of, it's probably from just dispersion of these eagles taking over territories.
Weren't they depleted due to Pesticides? Wasn't the
Yes.
original, and you don't think that that's
DDT
something that's triggering it
Well,
now?
DDT and PCBs, these birds have been tested for that, and there's no sign of toxins coming back in the environment in this general area. However, one thing we know, I do a lot of research work on snowy owls and up in the Arctic. There are places now that are more contaminated than they've ever been within the past 4 or 5 years because of all the PCBs and DDT that was created around the equator. It got caught in the trade winds. It got blown around the poles. It condensed over the Arctic and Antarctic because the air gets colder and dropped in those locations. So the two most contaminated places on Earth could be the Arctic and the Antarctic. And what happened was everything was, encapsulated in ice and snow. And now that ice and snow is melting, it's releasing these toxins back into the Arctic. So we're seeing things in birds that we haven't seen for 10 or 15 years, levels of DDT and PCBs that are higher than they were 35 years ago.
Due to the melt.
Due to the melt. So not in this area here, but in areas like the Arctic where it had been all encapsulated, which is a sad thing. But on the other hand, the good news is that, when we see something like that, the bald eagle and the peregrine falcon are great examples that if we see something that's wrong in the environment, we can do something about it. Peregrine falcons were birds that were extirpated from eastern United States. There was one nesting pair left east of the Mississippi River in 1959, and in Massachusetts now we have actually 23 nesting pairs, 9 in downtown Boston. So again, there's more peregrine falcons nesting in the state than there ever was historically. Again, a bird that suffered from a decline from PCBs, DDT, and chlorines in the environment. So if there is something wrong, these birds are indicators of what's happening, and we should monitor them because if we study them, we can tell what's happening in the environment, and hopefully if they're declining, we can find out why, because ultimately whatever affects them is going to affect us. So those are good news stories, though, about how things have improved.
Thank you.
And hopefully this will be a good news story too, so we can get a new water exhibit at Trailside to get the public to better appreciate these animals and see something in a natural setting as opposed to a cement moat that was built back in 59. So this is Barbara Farina from DCR, who's the senior planner who's actually been working on this project, who will fill you in a little bit about what we're trying to do here.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce the rest of our team. That's Chris Garcia and Nathan Ketchel from GGD Engineering, and Ray Dunitz from Ray Dunitz Landscape Architecture. And we've all been working quite diligently to reform this concrete pit. We have 3 goals. We really want to create an environment that's the proper environment, as Norman can tell you better than I, for the otter. Right now, the actual area is smaller than the guidelines for it. It's also reversed. There's more water than land. So we're seeking to enlarge it and add the land area that it really portrays the animal incorrectly when children come and see it spending most of its time in water. It's a mammal. We also have concerns with the staff, the vets, maintenance, accessing it. They need to put a ladder over the edge and climb down to get to the animal or do anything down in the exhibit, which you'd never be able to build something like that today. And we just want to make sure we give the public good information, and what they see, they remember more than what they might read on a sign. So if I could just walk you through this quickly. The existing exhibit is quite decayed, it's old. You can see all the patching that's been done. The staff does an amazing job with what they have. You can see the ladder, that's the primary means of getting down there if the vet has to vaccinate an animal. The concrete's in poor shape. This little temporary containment cage, we had to build, actually, Mass Audubon built it because we were cited by the U.S. Department of Agriculture because the otter was biting the keepers and it was just unsafe. The animal felt, I guess, threatened. The keepers felt threatened, so in order to prevent closure, Mass Audubon came up with a very creative solution that works, but it's certainly not ideal. And then on the top, you can see that there's a kind of a retaining wall with the chain link fence, which actually allows kids they can stand on it and lean over, and it's just not a good way to have it. On the next page, we're showing you some typical natural environments that you'd find otters in. They like to be near fresh water, in woodlands, just like the Blue Hills. And then 2 other nearby otter exhibits. So we're striving to create something that appears natural. It will have a lot of natural elements in it. There is a shed. There are times when you need to take an otter off exhibit. If the weather conditions are severe, if it's a sick or injured animal, the vet needs to check it out. So there will be some pens within the little otter shed that's also included. So these are 2 that are nearby. The next page has a list of just some facts about the otters and our exhibit and what we're trying to accomplish here. I'll let Ray talk about some of that. The next page is an existing site plan. There's quite a few animal enclosures and paths that connect them. We're building this exhibit or expanding it within this already delineated area. And then really lastly is the wonderful plan that Ray has come up with to make use of the existing pool and add, really enclose the land area that's there. So I don't know if Chris or...
My name is Christopher Garcia. I'm with Garcia Gospel. We're the civil engineers on the project, acting as a representative. These are the green cards. There's only two abutters to this project, as well as we notified Natural Heritage. Just to quickly go over the project. This is the existing site plan. This is the location of the existing otter pond. The existing...
Hold on one second. Are you getting him? No.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Thank you.
I'll still stand on this side. This is the existing trailside museum, existing otter pond, and the existing turtle exhibit. So, in terms of resource areas, there's the existing man-made pond, which is land on the water body that has a bank. And then there's an existing intermittent stream that has bank as well. So we have a 100-foot buffer zone from those 2 resource areas. So that's shown in this orange line on the site plan. So a portion of the otter pond is within that buffer zone. A portion of the existing turtle pool is also in the buffer zone. So as we mentioned, as part of the plan is to construct a 196 square foot shed that will house the otter. And then also we would like to redevelop the otter display area. So in terms of work proposed, we intend to demolish a portion of the existing concrete sidewalk that's in the area, create a new display area. It might be easier to see on this. This is our proposed plan. So there's some demolition of the existing concrete, reworking the otter pond, providing a new display area. There's a new area in which the public can look into the exhibit. All of the existing vegetation, the large trees are all existing to remain. The shed, which is located in this area, is going into an area it's a developed area now. There's some vegetation in this area, but no large trees will come down in order to install the shed. There's new fence around the project as well. In terms of utilities, the shed will have a sink just in case they need to wash it down. There's also a hose bib within the shed. So we have a floor drain in the shed, so that gets connected to the existing sanitary system that's there. We're extending a new water line from the existing water that's on site. In terms of drainage, a portion of the roof would discharge to a stone drip edge on the back side of the shed, and then the front side is where the otter would enter into the shed through a sliding gate. So we have a gutter and downspout would then just discharge to the natural area there and then lead its way into the man-made pond.
Chris, can I
Yep.
stop you there? Go back to the drainage from the sink, goes to a drip edge.
Oh, no, there's a sink and a floor drain, a hose bib inside the building. That needs to go to the sanitary system.
Okay.
So that's what the green line is. So there's a sanitary system that connects to the existing sewer of the Trailside Museum.
All right.
Roof water would go into a drip edge, the roof water, not
Gotcha.
not the sink.
Okay, thanks.
Electricity, we're just bringing electricity to this building from the existing barn. That's located over here, all underground conduits, nothing overhead. And then in order to improve the water quality, there's a pump in the pond that will recirculate water and create that kind of waterfall effect that you saw in the display that Barbara was talking about.
Is there an increase in the size of the pond?
No, I mean, it's the same basic area. In terms of impervious, we are increasing the impervious by 45 square feet. We just took a conservative approach. You know, there's going to be a lot of stone naturally placed, but we took that as impervious cover. So there is a 45 square foot increase, but with the drip edge and the infiltration we'll get out of that, we'd feel there's no real impact in terms of stormwater discharge.
So the effective area for the habitat for the otter used to be just the oval, and now it's significantly larger. Can you just, so we understand that?
Yeah, you probably, yeah, so this would be the fenced-in area here. It leads back to the proposed shed. There's a fenced fence area here, so essentially the otter has all of that area as its habitat.
As opposed to just the oval, which is all it had before?
All concrete.
Right. All concrete, right?
We weren't meeting the land to
Sure.
water ratios.
Yeah.
So there'll also be some plantings within the area, and Ray could probably speak to that if necessary.
Is it just one otter, or is it a pair?
There
or-
currently is one, because it's an animal that was actually hand-raised, and we can't put it in with another otter because it would probably kill it, because it doesn't think it's an otter, it thinks it's a person because it was raised in captivity. Ultimately, we're going to design this exhibit so that we could have two otters in there, so that they would be active. And the same thing with the shed that's being built there. That's going to actually have 3 bays in it, so we could have 2 otters that could be separated if there was any sort of an issue. The USDA requirements make it that we have to have an off-site, out of the exhibit area, place, location where we can put an otter or any other of the animals that we currently have, in case there was some sort of a sickness or injury or something like
Probably
that.
a foolish question, so forgive me, but does the otter go to the shed by himself, or does somebody take him to the shed?
It goes to the shed by
Dinner time.
itself. When it's dinner time, there's a guillotine-type door, and the animal would be conditioned and fed inside that door, so the sliding door would actually come down when the otter is actually inside of it. One of the problems that we have with the existing exhibit is that there was never any way to get into that exhibit without being in there with the animal. And every single staff person that I've had on staff, including myself, has been bitten numerous times by that otter, because as soon as you go down there, that animal is so quick that you get bitten right away. So we have to have some means of containment to contain the otter when you go in and clean the exhibit and maintain the exhibit. And the other thing is that we want an exhibit that looks like something that's more natural, so when you go out and see an otter in the wild, it's not looking into the cement pit that's deteriorating and falling apart. This is something that's been on the agenda for many, many years. In April, I have just completed my 50th year at Trailside, and I'm just hoping during my lifetime we get to see some sort of a new exhibit here that looks more like state-of-the-art than this original exhibit that was built back in '59. That was state-of-the-art back then, but times have certainly changed, and, being an environmental organization, Mass Audubon, we want to have something that is going to have, plantings in it that are natural, an animal that's natural, that looks like it's in a natural environment, natural habitat, so when school kids come, they don't think it's a seal swimming in a water pool, that they understand that it spends most of its time on land, and that it's a good habitat for the otter, a good environment for it, and when they leave, they know that otters live in an area that has both water and planted areas, and, an area that, looks much more natural, can, the otter can dig in there in the ground. It'll have, natural plantings that are in there. There'll be a sand area. There'll be running water that'll come down an area that the otter will be able to go in the wintertime. Very similar to what they do in the wild, find a nice ice location where they can slip and slide around. So it's a vast improvement over what we have. I mean, it's not the ultimate otter exhibit. If you talk about the ultimate otter exhibit, you're talking several $1 million to do that. And we don't want to create a zoo. We want to have a natural habitat. We want people to come in and be able to see these things here and learn how to explore, and then go out and do exploration in the 7,000 acres, that's the Blue Hills, to see otters in the wild.
Well, Norman, first of all, you've destroyed everyone's image of the otter by saying they bite. We always look down at this otter, how cute and cuddly, you want to...
Well, I can show you my scars.
But I'm learning, I thought they lived their lives in water too. I didn't know they lived on land.
Everybody did, and that's one of the things that we realized many years ago, that we had this exhibit that, essentially put this animal in a location. When the otter exhibit was being constructed, they actually had it so there was water 3 sides and a little rock in the middle for the otter to get out of. And within a year or two, they realized that that was a major problem, and actually cemented half the otter pool in with a concrete base, which again, from the aesthetics of the animal, and for an animal walking around on that concrete, not certainly a good habitat. So I think this is a really great plan. I think they've done a great job on it, and it would really enhance our feature attraction at Trailside. It is the #1 most popular exhibit we have, and it's the last one that we've actually renovated. We've renovated all the other enclosures, over the past 20 years, and, we have everything from a bald eagle to a red fox on exhibit, snowy owls, and this is the last one, and hopefully we can get this in the works and get it done before someday I retire.
Not a conservation question. Where's the otter going while this is getting demolished and rebuilt?
Very good question. We have 2 options. One is we have a temporary enclosure up on the back corner of the site that we have fencing in, and that's one option. And the other option is to send it to the Stone Zoo. They have an exhibit there, a temporary exhibit that we could temporarily, hopefully, put it in.
And what's the construction phasing sequence timeframe?
Well, we're hoping to get all this permitting and complete the design, which is about 85%. We're still trying to line up the funding to make sure we can build this. We really kept an eye on the budget so that we could get this accomplished. State government's really trying to trim the budget, so we're really trying to battle for dollars to get this done. I'm hoping that we can do it in the next year. Be nice.
Within the next year?
If we can get the funding lined up, then we would hope to get this built in a year, yeah.
To the extent that you're asking for a notice of intent now, I mean, we typically ask construction phasing issues in terms of equipment. What do you need to bring in there? Where are you going to store it? Where do you, refuel? And what do you have for spill containment issues? Is that too far away for you to answer now?
I don't know, what do you think?
Well, we have doesn't show on this plan, but we do have a large staging area. If there's a very large parking lot along Canton Ave, but we have cordoned off for construction, stockpiling, and equipment. We didn't bring our plans here, but yeah. So we were going to have the contractor use this area here for his machinery and whatnot.
Okay, I'm just guessing at this, but I think you've got some pretty strong support for the project here at the table. But I don't want to slow it down, but we typically have conditions to a notice of intent, at least when we issue an order of conditions. And I just want to make sure it's in conformance with reality. I mean, I don't know what you need to, are you taking out the concrete berm?
Taking out some concrete, yeah. The
Of the
pool?
exhibit? You're talking about the
Yes,
exhibit?
correct.
Yeah, we're replacing,
A component
Talk
of it.
about
just-
Piece of
demolition.
it.
What sort of demolition do you have to do here?
it's not a lot. I mean, we're just this is, now a swimming pool, we're taking out some of that concrete to replace it with gunite artificial rock, to make it look like boulders, and there's some natural boulders mixed in as well. So this white area here indicates an existing concrete walk that we're removing as well.
But the bowl of the existing, the bowl is going to
Staying.
remain.
We're building
You're
on top
building
of it.
inside of it and on top of
The
it.
portion of the pool that holds water remains intact.
Right.
The other piece that's the land, we will cover with natural rock and
make
gunite
it look
formations
Right.
because right now it's down low, to kind of bring it up so the animal can get out of there
Right.
into, we're gonna fence the existing topography and leave
Yeah.
it that way.
And you had mentioned that the goal was to just remove the curb along the back half to bring that down to closer to the existing grade, or is that true, or you're,
The-
like, there's currently a
That's
curb?
The sidewalk
This-
around the back.
oh, the sidewalk
The
on the back.
sidewalk, yeah.
I think
But-
part of the plans as well, as a drawing L8, I think that was a part of
The-
it shows
the-
a section of how we're infilling the pond as well, to bring in that natural.
The drawings that we have do not include any of those drawings.
So that
seven.
concrete curb that has the chain link on top of it, that I mentioned people stand on, that will be cut to grade.
I don't have that.
That's
Not
coming
this, Michael,
to
this
grade.
came with that,
I brought it?
there you go. It is in there.
Thank you.
And then we put a new fence, so there's nothing anyone can stand on. So that gets cut to grade. It's, about this height right now. And then the upper half of this pool, not the pool, the enclosure, essentially the bowl stays intact. And then we're gonna fill it so that the water transitions from that low level up to the existing grade. So we're actually leaving that whole concrete piece, and removing the surrounding wall and pavement around the back half of it.
Yeah, and the water level remains the same as what it is now
Okay.
in the audit.
So do you drain it during construction?
Stage discuss. I can skip it over.
There's it's fed by a well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a valve that we can shut off.
And what about the shed? 196, what's the DPW building commissioner, over 120 feet? Do you have to have like a slab or pilings or something to secure it under the building code?
We're gonna pour a foundation for this.
Okay. Is that part in here? And I confess I'm behind. Do you have a site?
We didn't include the architectural drawing.
This is what they'll,
Right.
We can provide those.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, we typically have a lot of construction-type questions, because, the project looks good. Looks great, actually, but, we're concerned with how it gets put in and make sure we protect the environment while the construction is going up. Do you need our positive issuance of a notice of an order of conditions now to get the rest of your funding and whatnot?
Yes, to move this forward. Because if the state finds that, oh, well, now there's a roadblock, what are we going to do here? Then they'll say, okay, we're going to go to another project, and we'll put some roofs on some other buildings or something, as opposed to doing something here that we want to do. So one of the reasons for coming here is to get, a basic approval that says the concept's a good idea, and if we need some conditions along the line, we can certainly come back for that. But in order for us to go back to the state, DCR, and move forward with this, and to get the funding to do this, and through the commissioner, we need to get some sort of a positive feedback that, yeah, it sounds like a good project, we're on board.
This can go, as we've kind of laid it out. We have 85% construction drawings completed, so we're holding back on completing them until we get all the approvals we need.
Can we approve it based on a contingency that once the contractor's on board, there's another review of construction issues?
Yeah.
Because that way we can give them the approval and that we still get the final review with the
Right.
guy that's actually going to do the work.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, historically been our problem. Some of the contractors come in and, the applicant is, well-intentioned and great ideas, but then the contractor comes in and says, who? What? And so we need to have our reach out to the contractor so that we can make sure that there's adherence there. I mean, we don't want cement trucks parked overnight in the
Essentially, you want a
this
site
thing.
logistics plan
Right,
saying we're going to
Right.
exactly.
stockpile
Exactly.
here, this is
Right.
what we'll fuel.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yes.
we can-
But does that give you the level of approval that you need in order to go, and then we'll just have that review once everything is up and running?
Right, if you can give us an approval, and then we'll come back with
The condition would
logistics.
be, yeah, we typically have a condition that is, your logistical plan needs to be approved by the Conservation Commission,
That sounds good.
which is typically not an issue. It just gives us the ability to reach out and control the contractor. The other thing is, and I don't think you need it, but you indicated on the plan, I can't even see it, but there's an intermittent stream in there. You don't need that to say that, and we have sort of an institutional bias against approving plans that say intermittent, because it becomes controversial, and that particular stream area is significant because it ends up going across the street into that big basin by the Montessori school, and that periodically has problems over the last 20 years or so. So if you could remove that, you don't need it, we don't need it. Okay.
Gladly.
Any other thoughts or questions?
No, as long as the final review, I have no issues at all.
I'm with you.
Okay. Any comments from abutters, members of the public, citizens? Got a thumbs up from
Thumbs
Dr.
up.
Harris. All right.
Three very excited kids at home, I'll speak on their behalf. Little girl otter is very fondly held.
So when we get to a point where we have a contractor on board, we'll come back in this venue?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so set it up.
through Kathy, right.
Yes.
And I think you've got the sense that
But at this point, we can do a motion, can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
You have
should.
to.
you're subject to eventual approval of the construction plans.
Exactly.
So is there a motion? And we also have boilerplate conditions that we put in, but they won't be problematic to you. They're things like, don't park vehicles overnight within the resource area. Yeah, don't refuel your vehicles. If you have hydraulic equipment, you need a spill control plan, which is basically a couple of bags of Speedy Dry and a shovel and a broom. So that they won't be problematic to you.
Good.
All right. So do we have such a motion?
So moved.
All right, second?
Second?
And this is with the conditions that you've got, subject to our
To the approval of the
approval
commission of the
of the construction plan. That's correct. That's correct. Any discussion? All in favor? Good, unanimous?
We're good.
You're all set.
Good.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So they don't live in water. Who knew?
Do you want this back? Kathy, do we have another copy of that? I didn't get that in my packet.
Here, let me give you mine.
Well, no, is there another copy, or?
I didn't get one of mine either.
You didn't?
Next on the agenda, Trailhead Museum. Next on the agenda, number 7 is notice of intent, 751 Blue Hill
I can
Avenue.
get myself another copy.
You want me to- I can scan it at work. I can just run. You're okay, Ingrid, or?
Hi, good evening, thanks for your patience.
Good evening, I'm Bruce Hiles, the applicant, and I'm here with Rick from Surfside Pool. For what it's worth, my family has long ties to Milton. We moved away, and since my wife and I were married, we look forward to moving back, hopefully with a pool, but glad to be here and raise our kids nonetheless.
Good, very good. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Let's see if we can catch up here.
Did you provide us with a map of the location of your house relative to the streets? I was looking for that.
I don't believe so. Kathy, does this sound right? Liz was in, and there was some issue printing or something like that?
I put one in the,
No, there was no site plan,
Right.
and
Normally,
there
we
was
have
no
a
plan
site
that
plan
showed
of-
the location of the pool.
I think, my understanding of the process, flawed no doubt, is that, we need to understand if such a thing was possible based on, setbacks to the areas and whatnot. I mean, we haven't, we have a pool design with a stamp, but, for example, we had committed verbally anyway to being 35 feet back, and we were going to see if that was acceptable and such. So no, we haven't nailed this down because we're looking for you folks, we're looking for guidance, I guess.
We have different concerns. You're talking about the zoning issues or the planning board. Our concerns is where are you relative to natural features like wetlands or streams or river, that sort of thing.
Sure.
So we'd like to see that. We really need that
Right.
before we can put our stamp on it.
Think of it as what would be optimal for you in terms of the location of the pool, and then thinking about our guidelines and the setbacks, making sure that those are satisfied, and then present that, and we can talk, and then you're coming in with something you think is going to satisfy the requirements, and it is good for you in terms of the orientation and how it works for the site. But it's hard to have a conversation in the abstract about where the pool is going to go when we don't have anything really to talk about.
Are you
Fair
hoping
enough.
to move this along like quickly? For this summer or something?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we have the sidewalk.
751, have we been at
I
751?
don't think so. It's a long driveway, isn't it? And you're in the back, yeah, I thought so.
We were there a long time ago.
Were we?
Isn't 751, if you kept going, would you end up on Apple Lane?
Oh, geez, you're asking the wrong person. It used to, I know this road in particular used to cut through to something, but now it goes nowhere. There's 4 houses, 3 abutters, so there hasn't been any construction at this property for a long time, such that you would have been there.
Well, look, we have a site walk on the 28th
Yeah.
of this month. That's an open meeting as well.
Could you get the plans to us that fast?
Could you get those plans to
yeah,
us?
that's very simple. So, again, it's somewhat arbitrary to me. I can say, farther away from the stream as possible and draw and have somebody stamp it if need be. I can do those things.
No, we need the actual, not just an estimation, someone who knows.
Oh, no, understood.
Okay.
Understood.
Yeah. And actually, if we're going to do a site walk, if you could stake where you're going to put the pool,
Okay.
give us something to look at.
Yeah, that exists. That exists now.
Okay, well then doing those things and giving us a drawing that we can, that references that.
Sure.
With referencing to the wetland conditions, so that we know what the setbacks are.
So what's the process? So we speak with Kathy and get on the agenda for the sidewalk on the 28th? Okay.
And a geomap.
No, we give them, we put them on the agenda right
Yeah,
now.
and you need the plan.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But what do we know about the current wetland delineation?
Is there a folder there with the
The problem
the
is,
layout of
Not really.
Is it jurisdictional?
It is, because it's an easement stream.
where?
That's what we want to see.
It
That's
wasn't shown up.
wanted to have a geomap as well as
Yeah.
the plan.
We need one.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Information you were given, you had given them every...
Yeah, we can't,
Your wife came down here the day just before...
This was done by us, the town. It wasn't working that day. He was
okay.
right.
Bruce, we can't tell what's jurisdictional, so where the lines are. For instance, it's not like a setback from a property line. We'd be more concerned with issues related to like a 25-foot non-disturbance zone from a wetlands line.
Okay.
But we don't know where the wetlands line is. And we can ballpark it from some of the geomaps that we have in the town, but that's not going to give us a delineation.
Right.
What's there, just sort of generally speaking?
It's a stream. It's actually labeled intermittent on the plot plan we have.
On the what?
It's actually labeled intermittent on the plot plan, that we got with the sale of the home. It's a stream. You can step across it. Yeah.
And how far are you putting the pool from that?
Again, I thought that was going to come out of this conversation in
35
front of
feet
you
away.
folks, but 35 feet, yeah. So I've misunderstood the process. I thought I was going to say, is 35 feet all right? You folks bless it or not, and then of course there's a plan and permits and whatnot.
We definitely need a plan, an engineering plan to show exactly where it's going.
Okay.
Because when we approve projects, we have to have a record
Sure.
as to what we're basing our decision on. So there has to be some kind of a record, the memorialization of the location of the wetland, the resource area, the stream, and whatever.
Right.
Do you think you could do it that fast enough to?
You say engineered, it has to have a
Yes.
surveyed plan? Yeah, on the 28th?
It's the wetland delineation that we need.
Yeah,
And a plan associated with that.
yeah. Oh, what's the date today?
17th.
Yeah, sorry, I have small kids. Yeah, I'll aspire to do that. So do I need to commit to that in order to be on the agenda for the 28th?
No, you can continue. If you don't make it, you can continue it.
Yeah, so if there's no harm in it, and I'm not spending anybody's
And
money
we'll
by
be
saying
there
the 28th,
anyway,
yeah.
so we can make progress maybe, anyway.
No, in my business, I deal with geoengineers and whatnot, so I expect I can make something happen sooner
sure.
rather than later.
Good. We'll say 9 o'clock on the 28th of May,
Okay.
but the reality is that's probably going to get rearranged till we figure out where we're going in the town on Saturday, the 28th. So stay in touch with Kathy so that if we change the time.
Okay, sorry.
Were
there other tapes?
Here.
That's it?
Are there other
Email
tapes?
is here.
Oh.
Oh, your wife's, Elizabeth's.
Oh, sorry, down to the game.
Good. Okay, so that if you stay in touch with Kathy,
Okay.
we may have to rearrange our times, but we're going to ballpark around 9 o'clock Saturday morning at 7:51 Blue Lab.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions from butters, members of the public? All right, good. We'll see you on the 28th.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next on the agenda is abbreviated notice of intent, 50 Robbins Street. Now, I think we have a request for a continuance on that.
No, I think they withdrew it.
Yes, but Nora's,
Yeah, I know.
oh, yeah,
Right.
yes, I gave it to you.
I know you told me. What did you give me?
An email.
An email, okay. But we've got it on the agenda, and we've got our consultant, Ms. White, so,
Whom we'd like to talk to anyway, so,
yes.
since you're here.
Oh, you know what, it might have, well, that's the original stack. There may be something here. You did show them to me, I agree.
That's for Woodland, and this one is for,
Okay. So we do have a email dated May 13th at 9:25 a.m. Hi Kathy, the owners of 50 Robin Street decided they want Rich Kirby to make another site visit to see the skunk cabbage before the withdrawal. He can't get out there until next week, so they want to continue the June hearing regarding Woodland. Bob Hannigan located the new wetland flags, and we are adjusting the house footprint to accommodate the changes. We will have that on for you later today. From Paul Sullivan.
Okay, now that supersedes, because he wrote the other one on April 25th, that they were withdrawing their application on Robbins Street. So this
Right,
is
that's
subsequent
a-
to that.
No, what I just read to you was May 13th.
Yeah, so that was,
May 17th says, "Hi Kathy, we don't have the report and plans completed yet, so you should plan on continuing this hearing as well." This is the 151 Woodland, I'm sorry. All right. My concern is that, although he's asked for a continuation, we have our consultant here.
but wait, John, excuse me, but in terms of Robbins Street, does that apply to both Robbins and Woodland? Or is it just Woodland?
No, the only thing we've got on Woodland, on Robbins Street, is they decided they want Rich Kirby to make another site visit to see the skunk cabbage before.
Oh,
It says
okay.
the withdrawer.
Oh, okay.
I think before they withdraw.
Okay.
He can't get out there until next week, so they want to continue to the June hearing.
Okay.
But I don't want to continue the hearing since we have our consultant
Yes.
here. and I'd like to have that report presented.
Very good, thank
Madam,
you.
would you identify yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Lenore White. I'm a wetland scientist with Wetland Strategies. And I have visited both properties, but we'll start with Robin Street. I did go out to the site in, I think it was early April, and looked at the line that Rich Kirby had flagged, and my findings were that I did not agree with that line, primarily because of the vegetation that was emerging up gradient from the wetland line, including a predominance of the skunk cabbage as well as a buttercup, both of which are wetland plants. There was also a lot of evidence that pointed to long-term wetland hydrology, such as the saturated soils, the buttress roots, and some hydric soils as well, being up gradient from the line that Rich Kirby had flagged. So that was my primary concern, was that I did not think that the commission should confirm that line as it was flagged by Mr. Kirby. And I also pointed out that the site includes other resource areas not noted on the plan, including a stream. There's Trout Brook, of course, that runs sort of right down one of the property lines. But then there's also an intermittent stream that comes in towards the rear of the property that runs into Trout Brook. So there's a stream that has not been identified on the plan of record. And during the course of my inspection, I did run into the neighbor, Mr. Stewart Harris was there, and he pointed out the property that he owns, which was adjacent, and we walked on his property, and there's a large area of wetland that's located on his property that would certainly create a buffer zone onto the lot in question. So there are a number of other resource areas that haven't been refined, and that's okay, because the only confirmation that was requested was the edge of the bordering vegetated wetland. But nonetheless, I would suggest that the commission not confirm that line as shown because of all the plants and the other evidence of long-term wetland hydrology there at the site.
Did you delineate your own line?
I did not.
Okay.
Can you describe buttressed roots?
It's when you see a large tree, and sometimes you don't even notice them because when the tree hits the ground, it doesn't appear it's like almost a stake driven in the ground.
Sure.
But buttress roots mean the roots, you can see that there's a mounding around the tree, and you can actually see the roots going laterally as opposed to down. And that's an indicator that groundwater is pretty high, and so the roots don't want to go down into that because they'll drown, basically. They need oxygen, so they go horizontally.
Right
So
on the
that's-
surface.
Yeah, and sometimes you can see, sometimes it's actually, you can put your hand underneath there,
Yeah.
that's really a buttressing. But even like with pine trees sometimes, white pines, you'll find that the whole root ball is mounded up. And that too is a signal that the roots are, they don't want to go any deeper because they'd be saturated and they wouldn't survive. So
Okay.
that's what buttressing means.
Okay, thank you.
Can you, and I confess, I've been traveling, so I have not read your report. And I apologize for that.
That's fine.
But can you just kind of walk us through for the public benefit?
Sure.
What you've done and what your findings are.
Yes, one of the tasks that I always do is obviously a site inspection, which I just explained, but also reviewing the application, reviewing the plans, looking at the regulations to make sure the application is filled out and in compliance with the regulation. And in this case, during all the sort of the course of my review, I noticed that the application that I had online wasn't signed. So that was a concern because you want to make sure that the applicant is aware that he submitted this thing. And sometimes in a ANRAD, the property owner can be a different person than the applicant. So it's important to make sure that the owner of the property has also signed the application. And, okay, so then I talked about already the site findings that I did find out there, including the fact that we have these wetland areas on adjacent properties and other wetland resource areas on the land that have not been delineated or even talked about. And Also, I do a review of the publicly available information, including the Mass GIS information, and that I look at whether or not there are any rare species on the property, which in this case there are none. I also look at whether or not there's any flood zones on the property by the FEMA maps. There is a flood zone actually on this property associated with Trout Brook. And then prepare a report for you folks to read.
What about the, I'm looking at page 2, and talking about the skunk cabbage.
Yes.
You saw photographic evidence of the presence of skunk cabbage.
Yes, Kathy Bowen had sent me a CD, and I'm not sure where it originated from, but it shows the skunk cabbage on the property. And certainly during the course of my inspection, it was emerging, and it was clearly predominant in the area. And I found it unusual that the LEC report that was done on behalf of the applicant had no mention of skunk cabbage in the wetland. So it seemed unusual to me that they didn't observe it there. So that was just kind of an rather unusual finding.
Okay. And you say that neither the second stream that you found nor the associated buffer zone is shown on the plan submitted with the ANRAD.
Yeah, did I bring the plan with me? I don't think I did bring the plan of, oh, wait a minute, I do have it. It's not a very good plan, it's just the one that was online. But essentially, here's Robin Street. Trout Brook runs along one of the property lines. I think it's the eastern property line.
I think it's called Balster Brook at that point, isn't it? I believe it is, and then it goes right into Trout.
And the other stream that I noticed, this intermittent stream, actually comes down along this property line, and it's very clear when you walk out back here as you follow the wetland flags. It's a very well-defined stream bank. But I looked at the stream stats analysis. Stream stats is a sort of a comprehensive look at measuring watersheds, and it is used in trying to determine whether a stream is perennial or intermittent. And when I did the stream stats analysis for this, unnamed stream, it showed that the watershed was very small and could not support perennial flows. So I've characterized this stream that's not shown as intermittent.
All right. Now, you mentioned that you looked at and disagreed with the LEC line.
Yes.
Can you slide that towards Ms. White? And the last time we were there, last time I was there anyway, we were talking about several different lines. Did you see flags from 3 different
There were other flags out there. They were not clear what they were. I certainly couldn't read anything on them. What was clear to me was the orange flags clearly labeled the LEC flags. So I was able to follow those LEC flags, at least as they were on the property.
And can you see that? And I recognize that I don't see the date on that one. Arthur,
November 2nd, 2015.
Okay. Does that reflect what you have identified as the LEC flags?
I believe so. Yeah, the flags were certainly labeled 1 through 12 out there, so I presume the surveyors had picked up them accurately as shown on this plan.
Okay.
And where I had the most problem was down here, and actually up here too. There were hydric soils and wetland vegetation upstream of upgrading of this LEC number 7. There were also a lot of skunk cabbage in this area, as well as the buttress trees and saturated soils. And then this is the adjacent property where I saw this larger wetland system that certainly would have a buffer zone that comes onto this property.
Okay. And did you see any stakes? They have metal stakes painted different colors.
I don't recall seeing those, no.
Did you see in the photographs that you received from Kathy indicators of cutoff skunk cabbage?
Yes.
And there are stakes in there to locate those areas. And the last time we were there, some of those stakes were still present.
Yeah, someone had put pin flags, and maybe it was Mr. Harris or somebody had put pin flags in the locations where there were now the germinating, skunk cabbage. So I presume that someone had identified the location of where these skunk cabbages were now coming up, so that if they had been maybe cut again, as they appeared to be in the photographs, that at least there would be some kind of boundary, i.e. the pin flags, to identify where those,
Okay.
individual plants
And
were
can you
located.
just kind of ballpark on that map where you saw those,
Oh, they were,
the new skunk cabbage?
they were up here.
Okay.
Yeah, this whole area here, I'd say, you can see the wetland line comes up further here, so my guess is the wetland line is, somewhere along, consistent with this elevation, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Okay. Any other questions?
As a final point, Trout Brook is noted as a perennial stream on the USGS website. It was not requested to be confirmed whether it was or it wasn't, but it is shown as perennial, and therefore the presumption is that it is perennial.
Okay. No questions from the commission. Any abutters? Members of the public who would like to make a statement, ask a question?
I don't know, I think, where do we go from here? This seems to be a continuing saga.
Can you identify yourself, please?
So Stuart Harris at 64 Robbins, and Melinda Polk, my wife. Just trying to figure out where things go from here. The last we had heard, this had been withdrawn. And so just to see this put to rest, I came tonight. And so just trying to figure out where do we go from here. And my neighbor has witnessed this for 30-odd years, so we're just trying to figure out where do we go from here.
I think the simple answer is, I don't know, because the applicant has asked for a continuance. And normally we do that, but to the extent that we've got our consultant here, and in order not to waste time, I think we need the information that she has graciously provided. So I think that the applicant has a right to come back in June. I'm not sure what the applicant or his expert will say, but I certainly don't want to have Ms. White. If an issue were created at the June meeting, then we probably have to continue it and have Ms. White address whatever issues they identify. So I don't think it's over, but I don't know that. It sounds from what I read into the record on this, the email from Paul Sullivan. He says that the owners of 50 Robin Street, they want Rich Kirby to go back and take another run at it.
Right.
But whatever Rich comes up with, I don't know. And I can't predict that. So I suspect we'll know something more in June. Is it the June 14th?
Yes.
June 14th. So I suspect we'll know more. And I don't want you on a fool's errand, but it might be appropriate if you could show up on the 14th.
Could be a good idea.
All right. And if we hear anything, or if Kathy hears anything before that from the applicant, then we'll certainly reach out and keep you apprised.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you very much, both of you. Any other questions?
No?
And just as a note, the commission has the right to vote on that request for a continuance.
Yes.
You can grant it or not.
Yes.
Similarly, on the withdrawal, it seemed to me that, he withdrew it, and
Yeah.
so you do have that, discretion.
That's true. Does anybody feel that we should take it to a vote at this point? Or, I mean, my tendency would be to let them be heard.
Right, let them be heard.
Let them be heard. I think there's a pretty substantial burden that you have to overcome, given both what we heard tonight and, for the public's benefit, what we've seen in the past. And I can say that when we were out there, I saw evidence of 3 different lines. And now we've got our experts saying that
None of them are right.
none of them are right.
No, I didn't say that. I said that the one that I.
The one that you saw, that's
Yeah,
right.
because there were really, there were no other clear delineations that I saw out there, so.
Right. Well, whatever the other lines were, they were further away from
Oh.
the
They're
Harris
closer to the
property.
brook.
They're closer to the brook. With one exception, which we learned from the applicant's expert, is referred to as an upland flag. when we asked what are those, when I asked, what are those flags over there? And she indicated those are upland flags.
I suppose you could delineate either the well or the outside.
So my suggestion would be that we allow the applicant to come back in June if he so desires.
Right.
All right. So upon his request, we will continue the case until June 14th. But thank you very much for your courtesy and your expertise.
Your report was great.
Thank you
It was
very much.
thorough and exactly what we needed.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it
Yep.
very much.
All right, thanks.
I also have another hearing which I'm involved in.
Next on the agenda is notice of intent at 167 Woodland Road. And that, I don't know what we're... So I guess 151 Woodland Road is another. This came in Tuesday, May 17th.
Today.
At 7:55 a.m., right. At 7:55 a.m. It says, "Hi Kathy, we don't have the report and plans completed yet, so you should plan on continuing this hearing as well until next month. But if the commission wishes to do another site walk, let me know." And our consultant is here on that. So would you identify yourself and tell us what you found?
Lenore White with Wetland Strategies, and I was retained by the commission to review this notice of intent application, which I have done. And as part of that review, I've written a letter and summarized my review, and I will summarize that for you. Essentially, this project is proposing a significant area of grading to accommodate a single-family house and a driveway. The plan that was submitted by Robert Hannigan, stamped by him as a professional engineer, and it shows the location of the proposed dwelling as well as the location of the grading and location of 2 delineated wetlands on the property. So subsequent to my review of the notice of intent, I conducted a little research and did some rainfall analysis just to see what I might find. I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's actually kind of a low rainfall year this year, just barely below normal. So I use that information to sort of guide me into what I might expect to find when I go out to a property. So with that in mind, I went out to the site again in early April and observed both of these wetland flags delineating these 2 different types of resource areas. This one that's shown in the sort of the front of the lot, right adjacent to Woodland Road, is really best described as just sort of an isolated wetland that's confined by some bedrock and a steep slope that's well vegetated. I didn't quiver much with the delineation. I moved one flag, which I did locate a new flagging and identified it as 8A. And as it turns out, I think I was actually off of the property where I located that new flag. But other than that, I would agree that the boundary of that wetland is accurately shown. Similarly, I walked back to this area here and noticed there's...
Could I interrupt you, Ms. White? I don't have that. Is that the larger one?
The larger one,
That's
yeah.
the most recent one.
All right. Thank you.
Similarly, there's a wetland that was flagged to the rear of the property, and this is bordering on a stream, which is another intermittent stream on the property. And the wetland flags that were located there denote the edge of the bordering vegetated wetland that's adjacent to that stream. And here again, I was in agreement with the majority of the wetland line. I did add one extra flag, I think it was 7A, which was maybe 5 or 10 feet up gradient from 7 and 8, so I kind of just labeled it 7A and located that there. But the most interesting thing I found about this property was as I sort of walked through the middle here, there's a very large area here of clearly saturated conditions. The vegetation there is all wetland vegetation. There was standing water there when I was there. I poked around in the soils and found hydric conditions. Again, a lot of buttress roots. There's actually a tree fall out there where you can see that the root system, which was at one point sort of horizontal, is now up in the air because it just came right out and landed. So this whole area, to me, was completely
Then
saturated.
could you show us on this larger map exactly what you're referencing on?
Well, it's hard to see on this map because there are so many contours here. It's a very difficult plan to read, but essentially, if you look at the existing...
Can I interrupt you for a second? Mike, you had problems with the contours
Yes.
originally. Is this the corrected map that we're using? Because there was, they eventually
The
came
original
around
one
and
is
agreed
below
with
it.
Mike.
There were two of them here. See, this is the original one, and that's the corrected one.
That is the correct, okay.
The
Top.
dates are...
What are the
different.
dates?
December 8th, I think, yeah.
Yeah, this updated December 8th last year.
Yeah.
That's the one I reviewed, the December plan.
This is November. This is-
Yeah, so the difference was that the original drawing didn't have this spit that came out this way.
Oh, yeah.
It basically had everything running perpendicular to the street. And that's what I picked up on, was that they didn't have that spit. And-
So could you indicate where you're talking about that wetland area?
This area right here, which the existing contours are the dotted lines here, the proposed are the solid. So if you look here, you can see kind of this existing area all throughout here that's low and flat when you compare it to, you know, a little bit of a slope here, and then as you go up here, there's that little bit of a slope. But it's in this area here, probably like right in here, that's low, flat. You can see the difference from 184 to 186, how flat it is. So that's the area there that I observed that to be completely saturated, all wetland vegetation out there. And to me, it would certainly meet your definition of a freshwater wetland.
So there was a test pit that we had them do in that, or that they did in that area. And you mentioned that in your report, and
The only thing, well, thank you for pointing that out, because I did see that there was a flag out, like maybe here, it said
Yep.
Test Pit A. So I went through the file again, and the only reference I found to Test Pit A was a letter from Michelle Grenier, who apparently had delineated the wetland, and she went back there and claimed that at Test Pit A, the vegetation was upland and the soils were upland. I disagree with that analysis, but that's the only information I found about this Test Pit
Okay.
A.
because I remember walking through, and I don't remember if it was something we requested or whether it was something that she had done on her own. But I do remember that we talked, there were two test pits that were done. There was another one over by the stream, right?
That's correct. And she, in her letter, I forget what the date of the letter is, I have it in my file, she found that both these areas were not wetland, or did not indicate wetland to her, apparently. This one I didn't see the flag, but this one I did see it, because it's at a little stone wall there, or a little break there, so I did see that, and assumed that that's what this Test Pit A was, you know, referring to in her letter.
But you disagree with that? You think
I
that
do.
is wet?
I do.
Okay.
It's clearly wet. It's no doubt about it. The water staining on the trunks, the saturated conditions, the vegetation.
All right,
I don't know
so
how
in
you miss
addition, you said that also with respect to that area. You gave kind of a generalized area where the proposed house is?
Yeah, and significant grading, you know, I mean, I think it's very difficult to read this plan, but if we were to go out there without all of this, you know, maybe just a plan in existing
Right.
conditions with no, you know, proposed conditions on top of it, we might be able to better identify it. But it's within this general area where it's low and flat. And, you know, when you go out there, you can see where the contours change, and you can sort of see where the water breaks, and the vegetation certainly breaks as well.
And that flat plain that's there is all wet?
Yes.
What you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So the next obvious thing to me is that we'll go further with this and do a separate our own delineation.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yes, but I'd like to hear what they come back with, and I guess that's the June meeting as well, from what I just read. You know, asking that,
Yeah, he
what
said
is
he
he
didn't
looking
have the
for?
plan, he didn't have the revised plan.
Or report, or whatever, yeah.
We don't have the report and plans completed, so I don't know if that's Michel Grenier or if that's somebody else that he's got. I don't know.
I don't know.
Do we want to take another look at that before the weather gets too dry?
Another look at what?
The site.
Oh, the site?
Yeah.
Sure, we can put it on there, I mean,
Yeah, let's
okay with me.
Once
On
it
the
gets
20
dry, it's going to be
Yeah,
contentious,
right,
debatable.
and we can see ourselves if,
So in the original proposal that you had provided, are we done with that original proposal today?
Yeah, pretty much, because I anticipated doing everything I've done, including tonight's meeting.
Right.
So, yeah, that pretty much is, the scope of work has now been completed for that proposal.
So we would need to extend her services in order to go further.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. But there's no question that under the statute that we cited, and I always get it back with chapter 44, 53.
13140.
No, it's not that one.
Oh.
There's a, I think it's chapter 44G.
Oh,
Section
58GG, the consultant one.
The consultant
Yeah,
one, right.
yeah.
Because the applicant is responsible for, payment of your fees. So that scope has been completed, but I think based on what I've heard, if they come back and say,
We're done.
it's dry,
Right.
and his wife says it's wet, we're gonna have to go back and delineate. So there'll be another scope of services that we'd have to
Okay,
extend.
let me know what it is you need, and I'll be happy to, continue, absolutely, of course. So if you can spell out what it is you need, I'd be happy to put together another budget, and some numbers, and see what the applicant
Okay.
thinks about that, and if he's willing to go forward.
Okay. All right. But the two areas you said generally, what was flagged,
There's an area here, it's flagged from wetland flags 1 through like 8. And it, like I said, I added another flag, but when I looked at it, I think I might have added it on the adjacent property, because this wetland line sort of went out this way.
Correct.
And then there's a wetland line back here that again.
that's
sort of goes-
B, and you added one there as well?
I did.
Okay.
I mean, this one seemed relatively straightforward, that I could add one flag, whereas Robin Street, I would have been out there for another few hours digging a lot of, if I were to delineate that wetland, it would have been a significant amount of effort, whereas here, it was just a matter of tweaking it.
Yep, okay. Understood. All right, that's great. Any other questions? Members of the public, butters? Hearing none, and upon the request of a continuance from the applicant, we'll continue this until June 14th. Thank you very much.
Thank
Linda.
you. Thank you.
All right, next.
Thank you, Lenore. Oh, you have me in touch. Okay.
Next on the agenda is request for certificate of compliance, 3 Carisbrook Road. That is,
that was confusing.
this is our ancient and honorable.
Oh, this is,
This is the one,
That was actually, the original was 110 Hillside Street.
I'm sorry, say that again?
It's the same property, you're saying?
Oh, this is
It
the paddocks.
Yeah.
It's the paddocks, yeah.
Right. But this goes back to the original development by Wellesley Homes Corporation. So I'm looking at this certificate of compliance that I signed. Don Neal signed it.
On my time.
Who else? John McGrath, Melinda Collins, Bill Clark, and Michael Vey. So we actually issued this certificate of compliance, but for reasons we can't explain. Oh. Okay. All right. Stall
Sorry.
for a minute.
So, have you seen the eagle? Is the nest?
No, I know he disappeared. I think that might be one of the guys that got killed.
Oh,
I haven't seen. Well, I haven't been around in a couple of weeks.
But there were 2 of them there, right?
Um,
Maybe not.
I think so, but I only saw it
Yes.
and her fly in twice.
Yeah.
One of them looked bigger than the other one, so
Right.
I'm assuming that there were 2.
Right.
But some of the kids in the neighborhood said they hadn't seen it in a while either. Either bird. So I don't know if they flew away or died. I don't know what happened.
That's not good.
No, I know. But I did like your optimism, and it's a good thing to
Well,
find
that's
these.
what Norman was saying too, in fact, we're learning more.
Just like the guillotine door for the
I know,
otter.
isn't that funny? That was funny. Yeah.
Wrong phrase, right? You pick a different word, any word.
And that's after he told us that the thing bit him how many
I
times.
know, it was funny every single time.
Maybe it was a, what's that thing, a Freudian slip.
True
And
enough.
he's been there 50 years.
50.
50.
I know.
That's what he said, yeah.
50
Yeah, isn't that
years.
amazing?
Oh, my.
Yeah.
They salute him.
Seriously.
But I remember seeing those otters when I was probably, 10 years
Oh,
old.
me too.
I thought they always were in water.
Because they always were water over there.
Who knew?
Well, that's the thing though, but sea otters are always in water, but
That's
freshwater
right.
otters.
Yeah.
Oh, sea
Floating on
otters
their
are.
backs and, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the difference between an otter and a ferret?
Because ferrets,
Question.
just like otters, right?
I did
Ferrets are
think I
mostly
thought
on
a
the
ferret
ground.
was land only.
Yeah.
Is that the difference? Is it with the same animal, but it...
Ferret is like a mink.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't it an otter kind of like a mink?
Yes,
They're
I
big.
don't mean to interrupt, but
No, no.
Oh,
they're members of a family called Mustelidae, which refers to the scent glands they have, anal scent glands. But they're all elongate and they all kind of have
Yeah.
a humpy run.
oh, yeah.
So
Like a mongoose. Yeah.
otters, mongooses, civets. There's representatives all around the world, and weasels and minks are very valuable for fur.
This is Mr. Tom Palmer who is speaking. Other
There's a giant
valuable
otter. There's a
naturalist.
sea otter that was mentioned, but of course they're all air breathers. And Norman said, "Go out in the reservation and see the otters." I would like to ask him where the otters are in the reservation, because I think they eat exclusively aquatic prey. So that would be fish and crayfish, maybe some clams. Maybe they would eat a squirrel if they get a chance at it. And they have a big head. The fish are smaller than otters, I believe, but they're arboreal.
The fisher cat?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're very closely related. They're weasel shaped. But an otter has a big head. If an otter bit me, I would say, ouch. Yes. I would not like to get bit by an otter once. I imagine they come down the ladder and the otter's waiting at the
Quick little bugger, huh?
Yeah, really. So
That's what he said. Quick little bigger.
Oh, did he? Yeah. Sorry.
All right.
awful, really.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, I wouldn't go back down in that.
All right, so we're back on the record. Request for certificate of compliance, 3 Carisbrook Road. The order of conditions, I think, was 2001, and now I don't see that, but we had issued that for 3 houses. I think it was issued for the roadway, the development, which is a cul-de-sac where the old paddocks were located. And 3 houses, lots 4, 5, and 6. And in 2004, we issued, that is, the commission issued a certificate of compliance for reasons that nobody can explain. And I remember this, my signature is right in front of me. And I do remember both the order conditions, because this is that elevation 68 that became very important to us. And we did issue, but it was not recorded. And as a consequence, they can't, I guess somebody's property is being sold. And they need to have the certificate of compliance. We can't refile this because it's a copy of the signatures, so we have to have an original to record at the Registry of Deeds. So, and it's happened before. I think it happened at the lower state. So I know we had to reissue one within the last couple of years.
Yes.
But my request would be that, and I do have a memory, and it is my signature that I signed in 2004, that we reissue this, because I recollect that at the time, the houses built were in compliance with the order. This is the same area, we actually had to go back, we had an enforcement order on
Yeah.
one of them because of they had a,
The hot tub.
The hot tub, right.
The famous hot tub.
Right.
The infamous hot tub.
it's not that house though, is it?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It is? It's
They
being
moved
sold?
that.
Oh, this is the one being sold?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But what?
But they did move it,
They
well,
moved, they did all that, and that was fine, but this came out.
Oh.
and they needed
but
to do this.
we had, I thought we had recorded that enforcement order, and then did we remove
No, then they filed a notice of intent, and we issued them all the permissions
to remove it?
to remove the deck,
And that was filed?
and that was filed.
Okay, so this is actually, but this goes back to 2004, and that's got to be, what, 2011 or
Yeah.
something like that? 12?
Yeah.
10, maybe?
10,
Yeah,
okay.
something like that.
But you also want to include the same condition to run with the land. I think it's number 57.
It says number 47, but what is number 47? On the certificate of compliance, the certification checks off ongoing conditions. The following conditions of the order shall continue. And then in parentheses, the form says, include any conditions contained in the final order, such as maintenance or monitoring, that should continue for a longer period. Condition number 47. Do you have it, or do I?
Yeah, the last page of mine, all of these, so that would be...
47, the trust shall be responsible for implementation of a drainage system inspection and maintenance plan, requiring an inspection of catch basins and detention basins annually. The inspection shall be documented and provided to the commission. The inspection shall list required corrective actions to maintain effective function of the drainage system. Have we ever had any kind of a annual report?
Not since I've been on the board.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if Kara kept a record.
Well, why don't we then issue reissue the certificate of compliance contingent upon their submission of a report?
Is that the association or just them, do you think?
It's
Well,
the
it says the
association,
trust.
but
Trust?
it's the Wellesley Home Corporation that we issued this for. But it's got to be whatever the trust is. They're not condominiums. I don't know what is there a common area trust? Is that a private way, Carisbrook Lane?
I would have to check with John Thompson. It might be private
It sounds it.
if there's a trust.
Well, it's only been 12 years, and I don't remember ever seeing an annual inspection, and that is a report, so
Yeah.
why don't we issue this contingent upon compliance with
Okay.
47?
Once every 12 years.
Does say annually, but,
Well, I think what would happen if any of these houses sell, is they're gonna find this too, and they're all gonna have the same problem, probably. But they all have
right,
to
but
be
once we
contingent.
file this, it's done. The only leverage we have to get what we ordered is right now before we file it. That may put undue pressure on one as opposed to 3 homeowners, but
It affects all three.
it affects all 3,
Okay.
right? So do you think that's appropriate to have a motion to
Yes.
reissue the certificate of compliance
Do
contingent
you
upon?
have the declaration of trust in the file? That's supposed to be that would
Maybe.
tell us.
Is this
how
what-
long.
I think it is.
Declaration of trust
file.
must be executed and provided to the commission.
Yeah, we should make sure all the i's are crossed and the t's are
Yeah,
dotted,
yeah.
or the other way
How
around.
many homes is it altogether? Do you remember, Kathy? Just 3?
Only
Oh,
3 lots
okay,
are,
the 3.
that's-
3 that are jurisdictional.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's some on the other side of the street. I think those on the left-hand side, closest to, what is it, Blue Hill River Road,
Yes, yeah.
are not
They're not,
jurisdictional.
yeah, the other half, the wetlands
So
behind.
these go together. And somewhere in here, gee, I compliment you on finding the file. That's pretty good.
It took me a while.
I'm sure.
Not the greatest
So is the
one.
trust called Wellesley Homes, Inc.? Is that it?
Here's the operation and maintenance plan. Declaration of trust
Oh, good, okay.
of Hamilton's Paddock Road Trust.
Oh.
And Wellesley Homes Corporation as its manager. Hereby declare name of the trust is Hamilton's Paddock Road Trust. The subdivision road known as Carisbrook Road and Parcel A, collectively the road. Well, I'm not sure that we need to get into the trust.
Okay,
It's
but it
pretty,
is
it's
in the
pretty
file.
detailed.
Okay,
It is in the
it's
file.
in
yeah.
file, so they're the
it's
ones
signed.
responsible for
Yes, it
the, for the report.
Yeah, so can we entertain a motion to reissue the certificate of compliance contingent upon their submission of the, of a report?
The inspection report.
Drainage
Inspection report.
system, yeah, for the drainage system.
Correct. And continue,
And a
continue to
continued
do so.
annual, right.
Annual, right, into the future. Is that the motion?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion, second discussion, all in favor? Good, all right, done. Next, informational 555 Holland Street,
He's not here.
not here, so do you want to defer that until June?
Like the letter.
Okay. Informational is the next on the agenda, number 13, informational Pope Pond.
Mr. Palmer.
I'm the last. My name is this on? I can't tell.
Yes, I think so.
My name is Tom Palmer. I live at 79 Blue Hill Terrace Street. And I'm a member of a group called Friends of the Pope's Pond, which was, I think, here at your last meeting to talk about volunteer efforts to make improvements to your property called Pope's Pond Conservation Area. The main reason I'm here tonight is you said you would schedule a site visit. I'm here to find out when that is and answer any questions you might have about what we would like to do on that visit. I did bring something to look at that's relevant to our discussion at the last meeting, namely about the narrowness of the public land at the south end of Pine Tree Brook as it approaches Canton Ave upstream. And this is a screen capture from the Milton GIS site, and it shows the southernmost of the group of 15 houses on the west side of Blue Hill Parkway, extending from Ice House property and McKean property to Canton Ave. It shows the last 5 houses, and it has a partially transparent aerial photo overlaid with the lot lines. And if you look at the lots marked 19, 20, and 21, I think you can see that lot 19 reaches far back toward the brook compared to lot 18. And for some reason at that point, the rear lot line of all the homes along the parkway breaks and reaches much further back toward the brook. I don't know why that is, but it...
Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry. Good, sorry.
I hope we can walk through there when we go. Ideally, our group would like to see the footpath go all the way through to Canton Avenue. You see, the commission has a pretty good piece of property right up against Canton Avenue. There's some space there. But at the lots marked 19 and then again at the lots marked 21, the last house before Canton Avenue, these lot lines make funny bends, and they get quite close
Yeah,
to the
they
brook.
do.
21, isn't that abandoned then?
Yeah, well, it's unoccupied now, 21 now, that's correct.
Is that under a tax taking or?
We heard something about from Ned last time, and he seemed pretty knowledgeable about it, but I can't remember what he said. I know that.
He said it was abandoned, they couldn't contact the owner, therefore the bank couldn't proceed with anything because they couldn't get permission for or against from the owner.
The owner is hidden in obscurity. Nobody knows who the owner is.
Tom, the lines you're showing here on the
Yeah.
plan, and then the gray area, is the gray area,
I think the gray is sort of an aerial simplification. I think the lot lines really show where the property boundaries are. The gray sort of represents residential versus the green representing park. But I think the actual lot lines are more refined in that respect. That's
But 19 goes way back to the
yes.
brook.
And didn't we hear from somebody last hearing that those lots were sold by a guy named Rhoda, was it, who was the architect who lived in that ice house, that he bought all the property from the Lambs, and then he sold these lots? And why did he break his rear lot line for those last 3 lots? And
Kathy, could you just, excuse me,
Yeah.
Tom, go, could you double check these lot lines in your research and see if what's current, what the town has as,
Yeah.
if this is, it does seem so odd.
I'm particularly interested in that gray area behind 20 and 21.
Yeah, I would say it's gray not because there's a difference in vegetation, but it's just a convention of how they map it larger scales. That's my guess.
That's the assumption
Yeah,
that we want to
but-
come
but-
home on that one.
Right, but I hope that when we walk out there, we can dope out for ourselves a little bit where that rear lot line might be at the rest of the stretch going up toward the dam, and also look at it here in relation to ideas about how we could get through to Canton Ave. I think there is room to put a walking path between the brook and these lots, but it's just very narrow in a couple of points there. And
Tom, where is the dam you're talking about? That,
it's not on here.
It's-
It's at the other end of the pond. You see at the upper.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
right. There is no dam in this immediate area, but you do see where Trout Brook comes in at the lower left. And as it crosses the green, which people call Peverly Park, it goes through like a 4-foot culvert there, and the outfall is right at the edge of the brook. I think if you had infinite money and time, you would look into daylighting that brook as it
Yeah.
approaches Pine Tree Brook. Maybe upstream on the other side of Sumner Street, maybe that's one of the lots you were discussing earlier, I don't know. I think you're correct, though, Priscilla, that Trout and Balster are the same now. Yeah, it's funny, Balster used to, instead of coming to Curry College and turning this way toward Pine Tree Brook, it used to go under one of the fields there and come out by Paul's Bridge, but at one point that course got plugged and now it goes this way. Whether there's any trout in Trout Brook or not, I don't know. So I hope we can have an hour whenever you schedule a site visit so we can walk from the dam area up back here to Canton Ave and then back down the other side. And we did talk about looking at the rear lot lines along the parkway. And John, you said you would like to know when we were there where we were in relation to lot lines. So that's what I'm trying to move toward here, that when you do come, that we'll be able to tell you, at least in a ballpark way, where we are in relation to this rear lot line.
we should try to do our walk sooner rather than later, before the invasives get so bad, we're,
Yes.
using machete to get through.
Well, the 28th, I think.
28th.
28th.
To the 28th, good.
So,
Where should we meet to get into?
Are you still planning to do the ice house
Oh.
that day?
No.
No, they're not
why don't we
in
just
front of us.
why don't we meet at the Parkway on Pine Tree Brook? And then that's the path that's where the drive-in path is.
right?
That's easy to do it there. I think you can park on the parkway, although there is a bike lane there.
Or we could park on Summer and walk across the field.
That's a good spot. Or
Yeah, because you can park right next to the field.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay, so meeting place would be on Summer?
Yes.
Okay.
But shouldn't we do this one last?
I think
On the
so.
agenda, I have to say where we're going to meet.
Oh, right, yeah,
Can't say
exactly,
Pope
okay.
Pond.
So, in thinking about the back corner of 19, 20, and 21, is it possible to use,
Alan Bishop?
no, I was thinking, what's the tracking,
GPS.
GPS. Can you get a reference of that corner relative to GPS and actually go out and locate it? I mean, that would give you, theoretically, that should be within a couple feet.
It could be done. I sure don't know how to do it. but
You would have to
it
be a
could done.
surveyor.
No, I'm just saying
That's the point.
just to get a sense of what it is. I mean, can we figure out what the GPS point
I
is?
think Alan Bishop can probably do not a better job, but a more detailed job.
Yeah.
Yes, and any
That's
help you could give us, that would be wonderful. I was thinking that if we try to do it, I would take the scale right off the town GIS viewer, translate it into pixels, and then try to hang flags myself on this rear lot line. I don't know if I will get to that, but I think I could be not precise, but in the ballpark as fit where this line goes.
Yeah, you could get like navigation, like but sailing. I've got one. I don't know how to use it. But you can actually tell exactly where you are.
You do it on your phone.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, geocaching.
Yeah.
Then you would have to match what you're reading off some points that you had fed in or something.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You have to find the
You'd
point.
have to get it, but that's why Alan Bishop could probably give it to us.
Okay.
And Tom, you show Trout Brook is leading into Pine Tree
Yes.
Brook, but the Google Earth map shows them as parallel. I have that, if you can see that, see how they show them, it's not.
Yeah, now that is completely messed up.
Okay.
Yeah. Why did they do
Can't do that.
Well, it's just completely wrong. I don't know.
That's not unusual.
This
Yeah.
is what Google Earth is showing. They're showing them as parallel, see, not actually going in, but being parallel.
No.
Well, that way they can track both of them
Here's
as
Trout
separate
Brook coming in.
bodies of
Here's
water.
Pine
Yeah.
Tree.
Yeah.
Here's
But
Pope's Pond.
They
See,
show it coming, instead
Tom
of
has them
straight out here.
as Trout Brook
coming
going
like
right
this.
into
Oh, really?
and joining with Pine
Like
Tree.
adding a whole extra
Oh, I see.
stretch.
Yeah.
So this is, Google Earth has it differently.
Well, it is buried, so how do they know where it is? I don't know.
All right.
I have not crawled up that culvert to see if it makes a big leak.
All right, so 9:30?
Judith, if I used Google Earth in Newfoundland, I'd wind up in Iceland.
Close enough.
For real.
Greenland I'll take, but not Iceland.
Are you saying 9:30 for this? I think that's optimistic.
Sure it is, I know that.
Yeah, well, times and places are going to change, because we also want to do the animal shelter.
Yes, the animal
Oh,
shelter.
okay.
Do you want that to be the last stop, or do you want?
The animal shelter?
Pond to be the
What's
last
the animal? What's up with the animal shelter?
Oh,
They're going to come in with an RDA or an ANRAD.
This is the new animal shelter.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
But Bill Clark has asked us to put it on the site walk so that we'll have seen it, and they're going to be on the agenda on June 14th. So we'll already know what, we'll already seen
I
it.
don't like that.
You know?
No, I do not like preempting the discussion, because you don't know what they're proposing, you don't know what to look at when you're on site, and I feel like they come in thinking you've already seen the site and therefore no site walk is necessary. I feel like it's short-circuiting the public review process.
Oh, you can do it again. In my view, it's like a jury view.
A what?
You pick a jury view.
Yeah.
It's not done very often. But in the old days, we used to do it on all murder cases. You take the jury out to see the scene before the trial. You select the jury, and then you go for a view. And you can't say anything about the case. You just say, look at that, get oriented.
Yeah.
And it gives a sense to the jurors that when you then hear the testimony, you can place in your mind, oh yeah, I remember standing on the sidewalk looking at the height of the building.
Sure.
So I think it's an assist, but I would never think that it would foreclose going back and looking at it again.
Yeah.
I think it helps get you oriented.
Yeah, and there's another aspect of this too. I was asked contacted by one of the members of the advisory group or committee for the animal shelter. And what is being submitted will be on the agenda. They knew about months beforehand.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it would really be good relations for us to do this,
to do it,
whether or
yeah.
not we have to do it a second time. So I agree with John.
Okay. I didn't mean to.
No, but just to give you some background.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, but it's a good point, Michael. that you
Nah,
just
we
said
did
it's
it
a good
before, and
point.
I didn't like it. I didn't like the idea that we were looking at it before we heard their point of view. It just felt like we were short-circuiting something. But my
More
just-
information is better, but I agree that it should never short-circuit an ability to do it
I
again.
concur too.
Yeah.
Which, whatever, it doesn't matter to me.
It doesn't matter, okay, I just don't, how long do you think the shelter would take?
Less time than
Less,
this one.
okay, so we'll put it before the postpone.
This will take.
This will take a long time, yeah.
45 minutes, if not more,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
I went up to see the site, and based upon what I couldn't see or find, I want to see it before the discussion.
Good, okay. Fair enough. All right, so we'll see you at a time Saturday morning on the 28th, and we'll meet near the intersection of Canton Avenue and Summer Street, but on Summer Street, because that's where you can park.
Yes.
Next to the field.
And you know, it's a public meeting, Tom, anyone
Yes.
can come.
Yeah, I hope we get as many who as are curious, and I know that you have often gotten big crowds and know how to
Yeah.
do it. You know.
Governor Stout.
Yeah.
We did have a police escort. Remember on Highland Street?
Yeah.
I also enjoyed hearing you mention Don Neal and Michael Bay, who I miss.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
Tom.
Okay,
all right.
thank you.
And next on the agenda is 14, signage for Milton Conservation Commission properties. I think that's you, Art.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a discussion about this, and this has been surfacing, at least with me, for a period of time, based initially on our site visits, Lyman Road et al., where we see numerous instances of encroachment. Not just that, but in my travels throughout New England, I see in other communities, not just in Massachusetts, but in other states in the region, excellent signage by conservation commissions, identifying properties which are consistent with a lot of, a part of the work that we did in the developing years ago, the advanced placement course for students in environmental science. So I talked to John, or emailed John and Kathy, and Kathy's agreed that she'd try and hunt down for us a list of all of our lands and then associated maps for them, and contacted the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissioners and Bill Clark, et cetera. And what I'd like to propose, particularly noting that we had a comment tonight on the property up on Randolph Avenue about putting in signage to delineate and protect the delineation, that we just adopt as a commission a statement or a program, a statement saying that we have a program of signage. So I have for you a little bit of background information. This is just a couple of emails where I reached out to association.
Duplicates?
And then reference to the handbook. And Kathy and I talked about the handbook, and the handbook is, as you'll see here, totally revised and now available only in electronic form. So we talked about the possibility of getting this information for all of the members. So what I'd like to propose is that we adopt a basic statement that says something to the effect that the Milton Conservation Commission adopts a conservation land signage program consistent with the best practices for conservation signage of the Massachusetts Association of conservation commissions as found in section 9.7.2 of the 10th edition of the association's handbook. Just that then that we have something in place, and for example, if we want to have orders of conditions, we can reference this, and then we can adopt examples or specifics. For example, you have one in here that comes from, in the handout, Pelham, New Hampshire, and you have some examples of signage that has been put in place in a couple of communities. Note the wetland buffer sign that's being put up.
That's a good idea.
In areas of the communities. The one that immediately follows, where is it? Yeah, there it is. That one is from the town of Newton, and what's really neat is that way all we have to do is get to the conservation agents of the communities that have exemplary signage, get all the information, and we can decide what it is that we want it to do. We have the contractors, the prices, and so on down the line. But this one struck me as being the type of signage that we might want to consider ultimately for a post pond.
Yeah, it's nice.
Right.
So right now we have nothing, and there's nothing in the mindset of our community, whereas if we have appropriate signage in appropriate places that we designate, we enhance conservation in the community, we protect conservation lands. So that's what I have in mind on that.
So is that a vote? I mean, are you looking for a motion?
Motion, right. That's my
Arthur, have
motion.
you seen the signs that they put in at Houghton's Pond, the new boardwalk, and by the pond there? They're a little different. They're beautiful signs. I don't know who the designer was, but they really capture your attention. So I agree with everything you're saying. I think it's a great idea. I think when it comes to the actual style of the sign, I think that this one you're showing is very nice and sort of traditional. The ones at Houghton's Pond are a little more modern.
Sure.
Almost more, I want to say, Asian-looking or something. They're
Inviting.
Inviting? Yeah, exactly. You really come up. So when we get to the point of what designs, we should look more, widely and
Exactly.
see.
In fact, you can go online and you can go through pages of beautiful signs from all over the country.
Yeah.
They're just incredible. Florida does an outstanding job, for example. So yeah, this doesn't bind us to any particular sign.
Yeah.
We can pick and choose and say this is the type of format that we want, and we may want one type of signage for one type of site, and another type of signage for another site.
Yeah.
So I agree with you entirely.
I sent you an email later this afternoon. Did you see it?
Not yet.
There is going to be a seminar on Sunday.
Oh, yes, I did, and I sent you a note back saying I'm going down to that on the 8th of June.
The 8th of June.
Yeah, if I can.
They're
2
having
o'clock.
a seminar on signage.
That's a good idea.
Well,
And in the back of your mind, when you go to that, think about whether or not the Milton High School woodworking shop could help us, or the Blue Hill Regional.
We're together. I was just thinking, these types of signage shelters, they must come out of those.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Beautiful.
All right, so if you see it on the 8th, then you'd be able to report back on the 14th.
Yes.
Perfect.
I'll forward the email if anyone else is interested in attending. I think it's free.
So I wrote out the
Like the book
I wrote out the motion.
Like the book?
online. Arthur. Now we can get the yearly, the book we usually have in the notebook. Now it's all on the internet.
Yeah, I
Oh, the
like
whole
it
line?
too.
Yeah, because mine is ancient.
Yeah,
The handbook?
mine too.
Yeah, mine.
Yeah.
I've got 2 of them, but one's from the 90s and one's from like 2007, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm out
I
of
just
date.
need to give them your emails and then they'll send it to you.
Okay.
Great.
Okay?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
When I talked to Gene Barrington, he said, throw them away.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he said 25.
They're still out of date.
Yeah,
It's out of date.
tremendously out of date.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
He said even the last printed copy
Yeah.
is 25% out of date. That's a
Recycle.
lot. Good recycling.
Cycle.
So that's
we
a
know-
motion for us.
Okay.
And could you restate it?
Sure.
Oh,
The Milton Conservation Commission adopt a conservation lands signage program consistent with the best practices for conservation signage of the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions as found in section 9.7.2 of the 10th edition of the association's handbook.
Can we table this until the sidewalk? Just so that I have a chance to actually read what their recommendations are?
Yeah, sure.
Is that all right? I mean, I don't want to agree to something that
You haven't seen?
I haven't seen. I mean, I think the direction you're going is great. I think it's exactly what we want to do,
that's
but I
fine.
just don't want to say,
Yeah, the more,
go.
as somebody said, the more information we have, the better.
Yeah, but what is it? Analysis paralysis, right? So.
That too. True.
Is that all right?
Yeah,
I mean, if we
sure,
table this until
absolutely,
the sidewalk?
absolutely.
No,
But
it
I
sounds
will.
great, yeah.
Yeah.
By then, we'll have access codes, because Kathy's gonna, go through the
yes.
handbook.
Yes.
And then we'll get access codes.
Oh,
and
give me a
everybody
purpose to
can-
actually use
Yeah,
it.
they actually said that,
There you go.
all I have to do is give them their emails and
Yeah.
give me invoice, and I think it's
Perfect.
pretty simple.
Okay.
Michael, which email would you like me to send?
At Building Envelope Technologies.
Is that it, folks? That's the end of the agenda.
Oh, there's one more thing that I have. Kathy, were you able to make copies of that?
I did. I include them in the packets.
Okay.
I don't know if John had a
Yeah,
chance.
this is in
An
the package.
anonymous, it was in my mailbox one
Yeah.
night when I got home. I don't know anything about this. It predates my being on the Conservation Commission. So I bought it.
What's this one?
Kinsale Lane?
I said, who wrote this? And
Okay.
I have no idea.
Yeah, they didn't sign it. I didn't get that.
Is this near the development from the, Catholic Church there, Pope Pius?
Pius Rectory?
That's Walcott, isn't it?
This is Dennis Cohen's house, the one he built on Walcott, Brush Hill.
Okay.
I came home from taking our younger daughter to a Red Sox baseball game, which the Sox won, and I saw this thing flapping in my mailbox, and that was it.
Well, that's nice, but why didn't they sign it? I don't get that.
Oh, we did didn't they come to us to see if they could break through to Alfred?
Oh.
Alcott Lane. Because it was, initially, it was accessible only from that driveway off of Rush Hill Road.
How long ago
Yeah.
would that have been?
Oh, how long ago? 10 years ago?
Oh,
8?
okay.
No, it wasn't that. I don't think it was that long
I think
ago.
it was 7 anyway.
Remember that there was an issue at that house?
And they had
There was an
the
overgrown
pond that was sort of like a...
but it had like a concrete bottom to it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's,
This is it. huh?
this is it, but at the time, there was no fire department access. So they needed to go out, I thought they had to go to the planning board to be able to put a driveway onto Alcott.
Okay.
No, they took on a Brush Hill address.
Right, when we saw it, it was the Brush Hill Road address.
Prior to that is Walcott.
It was Walcott.
That's the original, because I remember going up off
Long
of Brush Hill Road, and it had a Brush Hill Road number. But somebody was pushing to put like a driveway cut and join Alcott. And I thought the fire department was supporting it because it made it easier to access the house.
I don't know.
But I don't think that was 8 years ago, was it?
Oh,
Yeah,
it was a
time
while
flies,
ago,
I know,
yes.
I know. But, so what's the point of the letter?
Flagging kind of, what's the right term?
Didn't we allow like a rehab of the house?
Yes, we did.
Right, but this is all about fill. This is about a lot of clay that was dropped on the site.
Oh, okay.
And then the spreading of that.
No, that's the other letter.
Oh, then what's
That was
this
the one
one?
in Hillside. No, this is different. This is another letter.
2 letters.
Oh, sorry, got them confused. What was this one about? Oh, I have it. You want me to read it again? Oh, okay, this is this one.
Yeah, it was that long driveway, John, to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
this-
what are they looking for?
What are they complaining about, it
An
sounds
as-built?
like.
It
They
sounds like
didn't-
they're
they
looking for an
didn't.
as-built.
They sent it to Arthur. They left it to him.
Yeah.
The sage. Well, tell us
I
what to
don't
do.
know
Art.
what they want.
Predates me, I have no idea.
Well, I can't, I'm sorry, I'm just tired.
The letter looks like somebody's complaining about what got built.
Right,
but
and
it's-
that it didn't conform to the order of
Order of
conditions.
conditions.
And the question is, did we ever issue a certificate of compliance?
I don't
No,
believe we did.
I don't think
Okay,
we
well
did.
then what they're asking us to do is to go back to this and say, satisfy the order of conditions.
Right.
That's, and if,
It's like
yeah.
somebody dropping a dime.
exactly,
Yeah, okay.
really big dime.
So can you look at the, I believe when we issued the order of conditions, it was on a Brush Hill Road address.
It was.
Okay, so can you just take a look at that and maybe we could address it at the June 14th meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have.
I have
to
a
see-
folder here, but what Michael said, I'm too tired to actually.
Good shot.
Sorry, my brain shut off about half an hour ago.
Oh, it's not quite 10:30.
No, I know. I'm gonna be up all night. What's the, what do we have to sign? We've got some signatures tonight.
Yes.
No, we have nothing
Is
to
that
say.
it? That wraps up our
Well,
agenda?
Trailside Museum we have to sign.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, there's a few of them. In the, they just, what other word?
So are we,
Ready to adjourn?
Ready to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Done, we're adjourned, thanks.
Uh,
There we go.